Chapter 12-15. A dazzling brilliance bloomed on the martial tablet. It was as bright as the other geniuses who had taken the test. After the brilliance, everyone looked over at the same time. 85 levels of the martial tablet had been lit up. Many gasps could be heard in all directions. Many people felt their scalps tingle as they looked at Yiguchen as if they were looking at a monster. He was definitely a monster to be able to reach 85 levels of combat strength without the support of true chi. How can this be? The faces of the princes and princesses of the great Qian dynasty stiffened. Their eyes trembled as if they had seen a ghost. Wasn't Yiguchen's spiritual dwellings broken? How could he still have such terrifying combat strength? Even the princes and princesses of the great Qian dynasty had only lit up 70-odd floors at most. In fact, they were even smug about their results. However, Yiguchen's performance made them completely doubt their lives. Crown Prince Xingyang and the others of the Heavenly Star dynasty were also stunned. As for Zhao Weihuang and the other geniuses of the War God dynasty, they thought they had seen wrongly. Could there be something wrong with the martial tablet? Zhong Shan shook his head, unwilling to believe it. The martial tablet has never been wrong. The combat strength it measures is generally correct. Zhao Shinkong's face was also solemn. Your spiritual dwellings have recovered. Zhao Weihuang could not believe it. He stared at Yiguchen like a snake that was about to devour its prey. Yiguchen did not reply. The entire square was deathly silent. The geniuses of the various dynasties who had ill intentions towards the Sword dynasty and even slandered Yiguchen felt their cheeks burning as if they had been slapped hard. The combat strength they had tested was not even as good as Yiguchen, whose spiritual dwellings had been destroyed. Chen Qingxiao was surprised as well, but he soon calmed down. He looked at Yiguchen with a strange expression and said, "I didn't expect that your physical body would still be so powerful even though your divine dwellings were destroyed by senior brother Huang Qianqiu. However, you are too naive to think that you can dominate the holy imperial world with your physical strength alone." Although physical strength was of great help in actual combat, it was not the most important thing. The most important thing was the level of true qi cultivation. Therefore, Chen Qingxiao's words were not wrong. "You don't have to worry about that," Yiguchen said indifferently. Because of Huang Qianqiu, he did not have a good impression of the Imperial Heavenly Sword Pavilion. Not to mention, Chen Qingxiao definitely didn't come with good intentions. Zhao Weihuang and the others heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Yiguchen's divine palace hadn't recovered, he wouldn't be a real threat to them. Then, everyone looked at Yiguchen with curiosity. Would he go to the Holy Lotus to test his aptitude? After all, Yiguchen was famous in the Sword dynasty because he had passed the 20th level of Mount Saint Crossing and received the title of Natural Saint. That title carried a lot of weight. It was also because of this that Dugu Wubai's name spread throughout the surrounding dynasties. However, to everyone's disappointment, Yiguchen didn't seem to have any intention of going to the Holy Lotus to test his aptitude. "Oh, I heard that you received the title of Natural Saint and are destined to become a saint. Why don't you go to the Holy Lotus to test your aptitude?" Chen Qingxiao asked. "What does it have to do with you?" Yiguchen said coldly. "Ha! Young Master Chen, aren't you forcing someone whose divine dwellings have been destroyed to test his aptitude?" The Crown Prince of Great Qian Dynasty said with a smile. "That's true." Chen Qingxiao nodded. However, it seemed like he was doing it on purpose. Jian Jingheng, Mu Xingzu, and the others looked solemn. From the moment Chen Qingxiao appeared, he had been looking down on Yiguchen and the others with a superior attitude. It was as if they were born to be inferior. Yiguchen didn't say anything. The reason why he didn't participate in the Holy Lotus test wasn't because he was afraid that he wouldn't get a good result. On the contrary, Yiguchen was afraid that if he got a good result, it would cause a sensation and attract the attention of thousands of people. It was definitely not a good thing to attract attention during the opening of the battlefield of prodigies. However, in the eyes of others, Yiguchen's action made it seem like he didn't dare to go to the Holy Lotus because his divine dwellings had been destroyed. "Let's go," Yiguchen said. He didn't want to stay here for too long. However, Qin Qingxiao's eyes dimmed and he said, "Wait, Jiankui, although your divine dwellings have been destroyed, I am still willing to give you a chance." "A chance?" Yi Guqin raised his eyebrows. Qin Qingxiao stood with his hands behind his back and said, "It's simple. Follow me and become my follower. That way, no one in the sacred imperial realm will dare to attack you." As soon as Qin Qingxiao said that, there was a dead silence. Everyone was surprised and their eyes widened. In the past, when the battlefield of prodigies opened, there was no lack of weaker prodigies from dynasties becoming the followers of the overlord forces. This was a common situation. However, the prodigies were weak and came from small dynasties. They had no choice but to seek the protection of the overlord forces. However, Yi Guqin was Jiankui from the first dynasty, the Sword Dynasty. If Yi Guqin really became a follower, his reputation would be ruined and the entire Sword Dynasty would lose face. For example, prodigies from dynasties like Shao Shinkong and Jian Jinghong were no weaker than the overlord forces. How could they become a follower? Qin Qingxiao's words were obviously belittling and humiliating Yi Guqin. "You've gone too far." Jian Jinghong raised his eyebrows. If they were in the sacred imperial realm, he would definitely attack Qin Qingxiao. "I only want Jiankui to become a follower. Of course, if the other sword sons are willing, I can accept them as well," Qin Qingxiao said indifferently. When he said that, even the calm Xuanlian couldn't help but frown, let alone Jian Jinghong. Yi Guqin looked deeply at Qin Qingxiao and said, "Did Huang Qianqiu ask you to say that?" Qin Qingxiao's eyes flashed. "No, I'm just giving you a chance to resolve the conflict between you and senior brother Huang Qianqiu." In fact, it was Huang Qianqiu who had asked him to find Yi Guqin. "Looks like Huang Qianqiu still can't forget about the ultimate sword domain that I possess," Yi Guqin thought to himself as he spoke with a cold smile. "I'll give you a chance as well. Follow me and become my follower, and I'll spare your life in the sacred imperial realm." Yi Guqin's words caused an uproar. Yi Guqin was probably the first person who dared to go against a prodigy from an overlord force, especially one on the Dragon Phoenix ranking. "You?" Qin Qingxiao's face darkened. As a prodigy on the Dragon Phoenix ranking, this was the first time someone had dared to humiliate him like that. Qin Qingxiao laughed angrily. "You're just a cripple. Do you really think you're someone important? With your strength, you're not even worthy of being my servant. Well, let's wait and see. Maybe you will really become my servant in the future," Yi Guqin said with a deep look in his eyes. He knew that Dugu's soul-eating demonic eye had awakened an ability, the spiritual demonic seed. If he could enslave Qin Qingxiao, a prodigy on the Dragon Phoenix ranking, how exciting would that be? Chapter 12-16. Yi Guqin naturally had the strength and confidence to say that. He and Dugu had the ability to control demons. They might be able to suppress Qin Qingxiao and enslave him. Of course, no one else would believe that. I'm afraid there's something wrong with Jiankui's head," the princes and princesses of the great Qian dynasty mocked. Crown Prince Xingyang of the Tianqing dynasty also shook his head and said, "That's ridiculous." In his opinion, no dynasty's genius was qualified to say that to a genius on the Dragon Phoenix list. "Let's go." Yi Guqin waved his hand. It was really boring to argue with this group of people. Seeing Yi Guqin and the others turn and leave, Qin Qingxiao's eyes were clouded. Yi Guqin didn't take him, a genius on the Dragon Phoenix list, seriously at all. But Qin Qingxiao didn't make a move. After all, it wouldn't be good to fight in the sacred city of fortune. Not to mention that it might attract the strong cultivators of the Sword Dynasty. The Sword Dynasty was no longer the Sword Dynasty of the past. It had 3 saints and even a half-step Saint King. Even Qin Qingxiao couldn't go too far. It would be troublesome if the saints of the Sword Dynasty were attracted. "Jiankui, you'll pay for your words in the sacred imperial realm. Senior brother Huang Qianqiu doesn't have to do anything. I'll make you regret it." Qin Qingxiao said coldly. "I'll keep you company." Yiguchen said without looking back. This made many people sigh with emotion. As expected of the first dynasty's Jinkui. His attitude was tough. But some people sneered. They thought that tough without strength was just a joke. The matter came to an end for now. However, news of the conflict between Yiguchen and Qin Qingshao had spread. Most people thought that Yiguchen was overestimating himself. Although he was the Jinkui of the Sword Dynasty, he couldn't treat a genius from an overlord force so arrogantly. There were also a small number of people who supported Yiguchen. Most of them were dynasty prodigies. Because in the eyes of the prodigies from the overlord forces, the prodigies from the various dynasties were indeed born inferior, and they were existences like servants and cannon fodder. Yiguchen's actions were equivalent to clearing the name of those dynasty prodigies who had been discriminated against and oppressed. Deep into the night, the entire holy city of good fortune was silent. At night, most of the geniuses were at the resting areas of their respective forces, sitting cross-legged and meditating. No one could be seen in the square where the divine lotus was located. It would only become lively during the day. Right at this moment, a figure flashed and arrived in front of the sacred lotus. It was Yiguchen. Yiguchen muttered to himself, "I'm also very curious. What level has my current aptitude reached?" He didn't take the test during the day because he was afraid that his aptitude would attract the attention of many people. If that happened, it would attract the attention of many experts. He was afraid that even Yiguchen's identity would be revealed in advance. Therefore, Yiguchen decided to take the test when there was no one around. Di Haotian can make the sacred lotus sprout 49 leaves. I wonder how many leaves I can sprout. Yiguchen thought to himself as he placed his hand on the sacred lotus. All of a sudden, Yiguchen felt a wave of ripples sweeping across his body, probing every corner of his body. Yiguchen's various aptitudes, trump cards, and techniques were all detected. However, when the ripples came into contact with the Thunder Tribulation sword in the depths of Yiguchen's dantian, it was as if they were avoiding a snake or a scorpion. It was as if they were extremely afraid and didn't have the qualifications to probe at all. However, Yiguchen was still very confident in his own aptitude. After all, the cultivation technique he cultivated was the 9 Tribulations Heart Sutra. He had to overcome 9 tribulations to become a god. From the most basic perfect physical body, to the ultimate sea of qi, then to the chaotic sea of knowledge, and finally to the current flawless spiritual palace. Yiguchen had reached the limit of his own body in every cultivation realm. This was an advantage that the other prodigies did not have. As expected, Yiguchen was not surprised. After a moment of silence, the sacred lotus slowly lit up. The petals opened at an extremely fast speed. 10 leaf, 11 leaf, 12 leaf, 34 leaves, 35 leaves, 36 leaves, 45 leaves, 46 leaves, 48 leaves. Finally, the sacred lotus had its 49th leaf. Is it over? Yiguchen frowned slightly as he looked at the final leaf that was trembling slightly but had yet to blossom. At this moment, Yiguchen felt the 360 golden sword veins in his body that had been dormant for a long time begin to heat up. His blood began to boil. It was as though a mysterious bloodline power was being awakened by the power of the sacred lotus. This is... Yiguchen's body trembled. This mysterious bloodline power had never appeared in his body before. Could it have something to do with my bloodline? Yiguchen could not help but wonder. He remembered what the ancient god race's heavenly I King had said before. His bloodline came from the first race of the 100 races in the heavens, but it was later reduced to a taboo. Perhaps the sacred lotus has detected the bloodline hidden in my bloodline, Yiguchen thought to himself. Right at this moment, the final leaf of the Saint Lotus finally trembled and slowly bloomed. The moment it bloomed, a golden lotus seed suddenly flew out from the Saint Lotus. Yiguchen reached out and grabbed the golden lotus seed. At the same time, the 50-petaled sacred lotus opened. A blinding golden light began to spread and illuminated the sky. Let's go. Yiguchen did not hesitate. He did not even immediately investigate what the golden lotus seed was. He executed the imminent skyline movement technique and left in a flash. The sacred lotus golden light illuminated the heavens and the earth, illuminating the entire holy city of fortune as though it was daytime. What's going on? What happened? There's something happening at the sacred lotus. This strange movement instantly alarmed the entire holy city of fortune. Numerous sounds of wind breaking could be heard as experts appeared in the heavens to take a look. With a single glance, everyone's breathing seemed to have stopped. The 50-petaled sacred lotus has opened simultaneously. How is this possible? Cries of surprise could be heard from all directions. Not to mention the sky prides of the various dynasties, even the sky prides of the overlord forces were shocked. Among them was Qin Qingxiao. He took a deep breath, but he still couldn't hide the shock in his heart. With a tone of disbelief, he said, 50 leaves of the divine lotus bloomed together. Which genius created this miracle? Even Di Haotian, who is said to be a 10th grade sovereign, could only activate 49 leaves. Qin Qingxiao was really shocked. The person who could trigger the 50-petaled sacred lotus was definitely someone he could not compare to. Not to mention him, even Huang Qianqiu, who he greatly respected, could not be compared to that person. After all, this record was a level higher than Di Haotian's. Who is this person? I must not provoke him. Qin Qingxiao's heart was in turmoil. Like everyone else, he looked around but did not see the genius who had triggered the 50-petaled sacred lotus. However, this matter would not be settled just like that. It would cause a huge storm. After all, in the Nantian region, there were only a handful of people who could suppress Di Haotian in certain aspects. Chapter 12-17. The Saint Lotus had existed in the sacred city of fortune since ancient times. It was rumored that its history was as long as that of the sacred emperor realm. Countless prodigies had been tested in the Saint Lotus throughout history, but only Di Haotian had truly surpassed them all. Many people believed that 49 leaves was the limit of the Saint Lotus. They even believed that the Saint Lotus, at its most complete state, could only have 49 leaves. But now, many of the elites in the sacred city of fortune had witnessed a miracle. 50 leaves of the Saint Lotus had bloomed. What a shocking scene! Although it was late at night, the entire sacred city of fortune was alarmed. More and more prodigies from various factions had arrived. Zhao Shinkong, Zhao Weihuang, and the others from the War God dynasty had also arrived. They were equally shocked. 50 leaves of the Saint Lotus, surpassing Di Haotian. Who is it? Zhao Shinkong and Zhao Weihuang were both shocked. Who is it? That's too amazing. Zhao Xiaodi clenched her fists, her mouth forming an O shape. Her pretty face was filled with disbelief. Crown Prince Xing Yang and the others from the Sky Star dynasty, as well as the princes and princesses of the Great Qian dynasty, had also arrived. When they saw this scene, their hearts were filled with indescribable shock. Someone who could make the Saint Lotus bloom 50 leaves was too far away from them. It was as if they were from two different worlds. Of course, Jian Jinghong and the other sword sons from the Sword dynasty had also arrived to witness this scene. In addition to the factions from the dynasties, some elites from the Overlord factions had also arrived. Which Overlord faction's prodigy did it? Could it be Di Haotian again? Impossible. I heard that Di Haotian is preparing for Sky Burial Island. He didn't come to the sacred city of fortune. Then who is it? How many people in the Nantian domain can surpass Di Haotian's talent? Could it be a supreme prodigy from one of the three reclusive factions? That's possible, all the elites were guessing. If they weren't from the Overlord factions, they were guessing that it was a prodigy from the reclusive factions. No one would have thought that it would be a prodigy from a dynasty who had triggered 50 leaves of the Saint Lotus. At this moment, the source of the commotion, Yi Guqin, was in his residence, examining the golden lotus seed in his palm. What the hell is this? Yi Guqin tried to use his soul power and true qi to investigate, but to no avail. However, since this golden lotus seed was something from the Saint Lotus, it must have some kind of use. Yiguchen guessed that this golden lotus seed should be the reward for completely opening the sacred lotus. It was just that Yiguchen did not know how to use it. For the time being, Yiguchen could only put away the golden lotus seed. Perhaps it would be useful in the future. Just which race does my bloodline originate from? How could it be so powerful? Yiguchen thought to himself. It was rumored that Di Haotian's bloodline came from one of the 100 tribes in the universe. Coupled with his 10th grade talent, he was almost perfect. However, even Di Haotian was unable to fully activate the Saint Lotus. From this, it could be seen that Yiguchen's bloodline had an extraordinary origin. If I want to figure out my bloodline, the only way is to go to the Heaven Mountain Sword tribe, Yiguchen thought to himself. The Heaven Mountain Sword tribe was the most important clue to solving the mystery of his origin. However, this was something Yiguchen would consider in the future. At this time, there was a knock on the door. Then, Jian Jinghong and the other sword sons entered. What's wrong? Yiguchen asked. Brother Yi, did you know that someone activated the 50 leaves of the Saint Lotus? The entire sacred city of fortune is in an uproar. Jian Jinghong exclaimed. Oh, I know. Yiguchen nodded slightly. Aren't you surprised at all? Suki Miyazaki asked in surprise. Why should I be surprised? In the era of great battles, geniuses rise and kings compete for supremacy. It's not surprising that someone appears, Yiguchen said casually. As expected of Brother Dugu. With such a temperament, we are convinced. Jian Jinghong laughed. Su Zihao said, oh right, in a few days, there will be a trade fair in the sacred city of fortune. Brother Dugu, are you interested in taking a look? Trade fair? Yiguchen asked. That's right. At that time, various people will take out different items to trade. The variety of treasures is far from what the auction in the empire can compare to, Su Zihao explained. Sure. Yiguchen nodded slightly. It would be good if he could find some good treasures to increase his strength before the sacred emperor world opened. In the next few days, Yiguchen meditated and cultivated. More and more people also poured into the sacred city of fortune. The Tyrant Saber Empire, Phoenix Nya Empire, and Swallow Cloud Empire also arrived. However, as soon as they entered the sacred city of fortune, they received news about the Saint Lotus. 50 leaves of the lotus. Who has such strength? Princess Phoenix. She was also shocked. However, when she thought of the mission, she couldn't help but feel a little tired. As for the Swallow Cloud Empire, it was led by the retired Emperor Yan He and Yan Chang'e. Only Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and a few others participated in the sacred emperor world. The rest had not reached the divine dwelling stage and could only be cannon fodder. To think that there is such a peerless talent. Hearing the news about the Saint Lotus, Yan Wushuang also sighed. She couldn't help but think of Yiguchen's outstanding performance in the Tianhuang Plains. If Yiguchen could survive, he might not be any less outstanding than the person who attracted the Saint Lotus. Yan Wushuang thought in disappointment. Soon, a few days passed and the sacred city of fortune's trade fair arrived. Yiguchen and the other 13 swordsmen went straight to an exquisite pavilion in the sacred city of fortune. This was the location of the trade fair. Yiguchen and the others entered the pavilion. It was extremely spacious and could accommodate tens of thousands of cultivators. There were seats around and a high platform in the middle. At this moment, the pavilion was already filled with more than 10,000 cultivators. The arrival of Yiguchen and the others caused quite a stir. However, no one criticized Yiguchen. After all, Yiguchen had used his physical strength to light up the 85th level of the martial tablet and shocked a group of people. At this moment, a group of heaven prides from the War God Empire and the Tyrant Saber Empire appeared. They were naturally hostile to Yiguchen, but they could not have a conflict at the trade fair. Zhao Weihuang and the others just glared at Yiguchen. Then, Chen Qingshao appeared. Behind him was a group of princes and princesses of the great Qian Empire. It seems that the rumors are true. The princes and princesses of the great Qian Empire are willing to be servants and followers of Qin Qingshao. Many people were secretly surprised to see this scene. The great Qian Empire was ranked 12th among the 100 great empires and could not be considered weak. But now, they had all become Qin Qingshao's followers. Qin Qingshao also noticed Yi Guqin immediately. His eyes were cold, but he did not say anything harsh. Anyway, in his opinion, Yi Guqin's life would end at the sacred imperial world. The princes and princesses of the great Qian Empire also sneered. They had found a backer and were not afraid of Yi Guqin. At this moment, another group of people appeared at the door. It was Crown Prince Xingyang and the others of the Heavenly Star Empire. What was more surprising was that Crown Prince Xingyang was at the front and seemed to be leading the way. A few figures slowly walked over from behind. Who is qualified to make Crown Prince Xingyang be the guide? Everyone in the pavilion was shocked. Chapter 12-18. The Heavenly Star Empire ranked 6th among the 100 great empires. It was not weak at all. Crown Prince Xingyang clearly had his own strengths to be able to become the Crown Prince of the Heavenly Star Empire. But now, he had become a guide, leading the way for someone else. This was simply unimaginable. However, when the people in the pavilion saw the 4 figures behind Crown Prince Xingyang, their surprise immediately turned into understanding. The 4 figures were none other than the 4 Star Lords of the Starry Sword Pavilion, 4 of the 7 Great Bears. I see. It's actually the 4 Star Lords. No wonder Crown Prince Xingyang would lower himself to be a guide. Many people came to a realization. The Heavenly Star Empire was backed by the Starry Sword Pavilion. Crown Prince Xingyang's status was noble, but it was nothing compared to the 4 Star Lords. The Starry Sword Pavilion, under the ghost mask, Yi Guqin's expression became cold and stern. His grievances with the Starry Sword Pavilion had reached an irreconcilable level. Zhou Heng and Song Yuyao of the 7 Great Bears had been killed by him. Yi Guqin wanted to kill Gu Xiaoyang and the 4 Star Lords as well. Since they were all part of the 7 Great Bears, he had to make sure they died together. Please come in, Crown Prince Xingyang said with a smile. The 4 Star Lords nodded slightly. They were quadruplets and all had the surname Jiang. The eldest, Jiang Qingsong, was from the Dubhe Star. The second, Jiang Shiyu, was from the Merak Star. The third, Jiang Wangcheng, was from the Fecta Star. The fourth, Jiang Yuanlong, was from the Migres Star. If the 4 of them were to stand out, they would be able to sweep through an entire region. If the 4 of them worked together, even the 10 young masters would be in danger, let alone regular prodigies of the Dragon rank and Phoenix rank. When the 4 of them worked together, they could even exchange blows with the prodigies of the 4 emperors. As a result, the fame of the 4 Star Lords was not just for show. They were no weaker than Gu Xiaoyang. At that moment, the 4 Star Lords ignored the gazes of the others. Instead, they discussed seriously. The person who triggered 50 leaves of the Saint Lotus is truly terrifying. Even Di Haotian's record was broken by him, said Jiang Wangcheng. That's right. I wonder if that person will appear in the Holy Imperial World. If he does, we can't afford to offend him. Jiang Shiyu said solemnly. That's right. Even if the 4 of us work together, we may not be able to defeat them. So, when we enter the Holy Emperor world, we must be careful, Jiang Qingsong said in a deep voice. They were extremely wary of the person who had triggered the Saint Lotus. With the arrival of the 4 Star Lords, the entire pavilion became livelier and livelier. After all, the sky prides of the Overlord-level forces were starting to show themselves. However, just when everyone thought that the 4 Star Lords would be the most dazzling existences there, the 4 Star Lords became the most dazzling existences. Another figure stepped in, snatching away everyone's attention. It was a white-clothed young man. He was handsome like jade, and his figure was tall and straight. He was like a young phoenix, and he carried the aura of a king. As he stepped into the pavilion, a formless sword intent swept out in all directions. Those with weaker cultivations even let out a muffled groan as they were forced back. Their faces were filled with shock. How is this possible? It's just a strand of aura, yet it's already suppressing everything. Some people cried out involuntarily. However, when they saw who it was, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. It's the Sword King body of the Heavenly God Sword Sect, Chu Xuanjun. Along with the exclamations, many people stood up with shock and awe on their faces. Among the sky prides of the Nantian region, Chu Xuanjun was definitely one of the top existences. As a 9th grade sky pride, he had the Sword King body and was born with the heart of the sword. Comprehending sword intent was as simple as eating and drinking for him. There were even some sky prides who thought that although Chu Xuanjun was one of the top 10 young masters, his true strength was almost at the level of the 4 emperors. It could be said that if the Heavenly God's Sword Sect did not have Di Haotian, Chu Xuanjun would be the most dazzling sky pride. However, because of Di Haotian, Chu Xuanjun's glory was overshadowed. Many people did not know Chu Xuanjun's true strength. However, no one dared to underestimate Chu Xuanjun. The Heavenly God's Sword Sect. Yi Guqin looked at Chu Xuanjun and frowned. He suddenly rejoiced that he was able to refine Dugu Chuma's avatar. Otherwise, Yi Guqin alone would not be able to deal with Gu Xiaoyang, the 4 young star lords, Chu Xuanjun, and the other sky prides. So it's young Master Xuanjun. Sorry. The 4 young star lords stood up and said. The 4 young star lords did not take other people seriously. However, when facing sky prides of the same level or even stronger than them, the 4 young star lords would treat them with respect. Yes. Chu Xuanjun nodded slightly. The Heavenly God Sword Sect and the Starry Sword Pavilion did not have much conflict. When the Heavenly God Sword Sect destroyed the Su family, the Starry Sword Pavilion also helped. Therefore, the relationship between the two forces was quite good. When the time comes in the Sacred Emperor realm, if you meet young Master Xuanjun, I hope you will show mercy, Jiang Qingsang said with a smile. That won't be necessary. If the 4 of you join forces, I will also have a headache, Chu Xuanjun said. Looking at the two sides praising each other, the surrounding sky prides cursed silently. After Chu Xuanjun took his seat, the trade fair began. An old man walked up to the high platform and began to take out the first auction item. It was an imperial-level martial arts technique. Everyone, I'm sure you all know the rules of the trade fair. It is different from an auction. Instead of using celestial crystals to trade, we will use other items. The owner of this imperial-level martial arts technique will need something like sacred medicine to trade for it. The so-called trade fair was an exchange of items. Some people took out some precious items that they did not need to trade for something that they needed. They would trade with whoever could satisfy their needs. Soon, the emperor-class martial art was sold to someone for the price of 5 Saint Herbs. Yi Guqin just watched quietly. He had many treasures on him, but not many. If it was not something that he really needed, he would not make a move. Next, items were presented one after another and were quickly traded away. Yi Guqin shook his head slightly. There was nothing that he needed. At this time, another jade slip was presented. The old man said, "This jade slip records an imperial-level martial arts technique." As soon as the introduction was made, many people immediately lost interest. Although imperial-level martial arts techniques were rare, they were not too rare. Even some dynasties had 1 or 2 imperial-level martial arts techniques, let alone the overlord-level forces. Therefore, no one was interested in this item. The old man suddenly smiled mysteriously and said, "Everyone, don't underestimate this imperial-level martial arts technique. It is said that this martial arts technique is related to one of the top 10 Archean secret skills." What? It is related to one of the top 10 Archean secret skills. Hearing the old man's words, all the sky prides immediately perked up. The top 10 Archean secret skills were the top 10 secret skills that had been passed down from the Archean era. Each secret skill had a different ability. If cultivated to the extreme, one could obtain unexpected effects and increase one's strength greatly. Now, everyone was interested. They wanted to know what kind of martial arts technique was recorded in the jade slip. Chapter 12:19. This emperor-level bodily movement technique is called distance shrinking. It's said to be an incomplete chapter of the divine movement secret skill, one of the top 10 Archean secret skills. If you can combine it with other incomplete chapters, you may get the complete inheritance of the divine movement secret skill. The old man explained. It's distance shrinking. Since it's related to the divine movement secret skill, we must get it. Yes, speed is the best martial art in the world. The divine movement secret skill represents extreme speed. After learning it, you can attack at close range and escape at will. Hearing the old man's explanation, many people's eyes lit up. Of course, there were also some calmer people. Although the divine movement secret skill is good, it's only an incomplete chapter. Who knows if we can get other incomplete chapters in the future? Yes, if we can't get it, distance shrinking is only a little better than an emperor-level bodily movement technique, some people said rationally. In short, if the real divine movement secret skill appeared, even experts of the saint realm would be tempted, let alone these talents. But if it was only an incomplete chapter, the attraction would be greatly reduced. The old man seemed to understand. He smiled faintly and said, the guest who took out the incomplete chapter said that he needs all kinds of supreme-grade materials to forge weapons of tribulation. The one who takes out the most valuable materials will get distance shrinking. There was a discussion in the pavilion. Although the incomplete chapter was not as attractive, many people were still interested. Among them, Yiguchin was the most interested. His eyes lit up under the mask, and his heart skipped a beat. Wasn't so close, yet worlds apart, one of the incomplete chapters of the divine movement secret skill? If he could get distance shrinking and combine the two, would it become the real divine movement secret skill? If so, Yiguchin would have two Archean secret skills, the sky-devouring secret skill and the divine movement secret skill. By then, Yiguchin's strength would increase again. Moreover, the divine movement secret skill was extremely fast. It was very useful for both attacking and temporarily retreating. Supreme-grade materials to forge weapons of tribulation. I have them, but... Yiguchin hesitated. In fact, Yiguchin even had sacred materials, not to mention supreme-grade materials to forge weapons of tribulation. 9 orifices divine stone and mica spirit containing saliva. There was also the 10,000-year-old mica, which was slightly inferior to the sacred material. However, Yiguchin had collected all of these and was preparing to forge his own famed sword. It was impossible for him to trade it away. We can only rely on luck. Yiguchin sighed softly. Next, Yiguchin took out the Millennium Mica and other materials he had collected to participate in the exchange. In the end, the results were out. Yiguchin did not obtain the earth-shrinking technique. As expected, this result was within Yiguchin's expectations. Congratulations to this young master for obtaining the earth-shrinking technique. The old man handed the jade slip to a tall and slender young master. That young master's hair was tied up with a jade crown, and his hair was so shiny that it could be used as a mirror. He was exceptionally handsome, with red lips and white teeth. His face was elegant, and his handsome eyes were filled with anger. Her peach blossom eyes, in particular, flickered with a hint of charm. Yiguchin narrowed his eyes. What surprised him was not that the young master should be a woman dressed as a man, but that he sensed that the hidden aura on her was extremely strong. Not to mention anything else, she was at least comparable to the prodigies on the Dragon Phoenix list. Interesting. There are indeed many dark horses in the battlefield of prodigies. Yiguchin thought to himself. Although the battlefield of prodigies was the stage for the prodigies of the overlord forces, there were still some dark horses in the past. Some of them had accidentally obtained some treasures and inheritances, or awakened some kind of physique. They rose against the trend and were not weaker than the supreme prodigies. He wondered if the cross-dressing young master was one of them. However, since the earth-shrinking technique had already been taken by someone else, Yiguchin could only give up. He looked away and felt that it was a pity. As for the handsome young master, he glanced at Yiguchin and looked away. The things that were displayed next were more and more precious. Even the 4-star lords and Chu Xuanjin took 1 or 2 shots. However, those things did not mean much to Yiguchin. Just as Yiguchin was about to get up and leave, the old man on the high platform suddenly revealed a strange smile and said, "Everyone, the next item is the last item of this trade fair." However, it doesn't seem to be an item. What is that? Could it be a demon beast? Don't keep us in suspense. Everyone in the pavilion became interested. Even Chu Xuanjin, who had a calm expression on his face, cast his gaze over with interest. Next, someone brought up an iron cage covered with a cloth. The old man reached out and lifted the cloth. In the iron cage was a girl of 17 or 18 years old. The girl's light yellow dress was torn in many places and dirty, but it could not hide her beauty. Her petite body was curled up in the iron cage, shivering. Her almond-shaped eyes were filled with tears, and she looked very lovely. Seeing the girl in the iron cage, everyone present was stunned and puzzled. This young girl was indeed very beautiful. However, the majority of the people present were people of extraordinary status. It was not as if they had never seen a beautiful young girl before. "May I ask what's so special about this girl? If she's just an ordinary girl, she won't be attractive to us," many prodigies said. "Ha, if she's just an ordinary girl, we won't let her in. This girl's identity is very special," the old man said with a smile. "Oh, what's her identity?" Chen Qingshao tapped his fingers on the armrest of his chair and said calmly. "She's from the Su family," the old man said. Whoosh! The old man's words caused an uproar. Many prodigies were surprised as they stared at the beautiful girl in the iron cage. That girl was from the Su family. The Su family was once an overlord family and was one of the 5 great families. Later, it was destroyed by a group of forces led by the heavenly god sword sect. However, a centipede died but did not fall down. After all, the Su family was an overlord family. Even if it was destroyed, there would be a small number of people who survived. For example, Su Jianchu's family had fled to the Saint Origin dynasty to avoid being hunted down. Of course, there might be a small number of Su family members who were still alive and waiting for a chance to take revenge. Over the years, the heavenly god sword sect and other forces had been capturing some powerful survivors of the Su family. From time to time, some Su family members would be found by the heavenly god sword sect and then killed. However, this girl from the Su family clearly didn't have much strength. She just had a special identity. The Su family. Yiguchin's gaze fell on the beautiful girl. Looking at the trembling young girl in the iron cage, he said, "Don't worry." Yiguchin thought of Su Jianchu again. She once said in despair that the Su family's destruction was all because of her. The Su family's misery was also because of her. Su Jianchu blamed herself. Therefore, even if it was for Su Jianchu, Yiguchin couldn't ignore this girl from the Su family. Chapter 12:20. Everyone, this young lady from the Su clan is very clean and has not been tainted in any way. That customer's request is to exchange for pills or treasures that can increase one's comprehension ability. Whoever takes out the most precious item will have this young lady from the Su clan, the old man said slowly. Hearing the old man's words, some of the prodigies present had a hint of passion in their eyes. If she was just an ordinary girl, no matter how beautiful she would not have aroused their interest. However, her identity as a member of the Su family greatly increased her charm. That feeling was as if someone who was once high and unreachable could now kneel in front of them. For some men, that feeling was extremely satisfying. Feeling some of the gazes on her, the beautiful girl in the iron cage trembled. She hugged her chest with her arms and her almond-shaped eyes were covered with a layer of mist. Soon, some people began to take out items and wanted to exchange. However, treasures that could increase comprehension ability were really rare. Therefore, many people could only watch helplessly. I have a 10,000-year-old musk here. After igniting it, it can increase your comprehension ability. At that moment, the handsome young man who had bid for the distance shrinking into an inch earlier deliberately said in a low voice. The handsome young man's gaze also fell on the girl from the Su family. Oh my God, it's a 10,000-year-old musk. He even has such a good item. Many prodigies were speechless and found it unbelievable. This 10,000-year-old musk was very beneficial to one's comprehension and cultivation after igniting it. It was very rare. It was a bit of a loss to exchange such a treasure for a girl, even if the girl was from the Su family. Yiguchin had a strange look in his eyes. If he was not wrong, that handsome young man should be a woman dressed as a man. Why did she bid for the girl from the Su family? However, at that moment, Chu Xuanzhen also said, I'll offer 10 enlightenment pills. 10 enlightenment pills. Many people around him sucked in a cold breath. The enlightenment pill was an extremely rare sacred pill. Its raw material was the leaves of the enlightenment ancient tree. There was only one sacred medicine like the enlightenment ancient tree in the entire heavenly god sword sect. It could be seen how generous Chu Xuanzhen was. Many prodigies were puzzled. Chu Xuanzhen was not the kind of person who was blinded by lust. With his status, he did not have to worry about not having enough girls. What was he trying to do by bidding for the girl from the Su family with 10 enlightenment pills? Little did they know that Chu Xuanzhen was thinking about something else at that moment. Senior brother Haotian once said that the blood of the Su family would be of some help in unsealing the mortal emperor's sword. If I were to bring this young woman back, perhaps she would be able to help senior brother Haotian, Chu Xuanzhen thought to himself. You. The handsome young master frowned and looked at Chu Xuanzhen. His peach blossom eyes surged with coldness. After the old man finished asking, he returned and said, if no one else bids, then this young lady from the Su family will be obtained by young Master Chu. Hearing this, everyone present looked at each other in dismay, all of them remaining silent. Not to mention that they couldn't take out a treasure better than the Tao comprehension pill. Even if he could take it out, it was impossible for him to snatch it from Chu Xuanzhen's hands. It was no different from snatching food from a tiger's mouth. There was no need to offend Chu Xuanzhen for a girl from the Su family. A faint smile appeared on Chu Xuanzhen's face. The misty almond-shaped eyes of the Su family's young lady in the iron cage also revealed a look of despair. She knew that with her status as a member of the Su family, falling into the hands of the heavenly god sword sect would definitely not end well. At this moment, a calm voice suddenly sounded. I want this young lady. As for the Tao comprehension pill, I believe that it won't disappoint that person. Hearing this, there was dead silence in the pavilion. Many people thought that they had misheard and were hallucinating. Didn't they see that this was the person Chu Xuanzhen wanted? Who would dare to snatch someone from Chu Xuanzhen? Everyone's eyes suddenly turned to the source of the voice. When they saw the person who spoke, the corners of many elites' mouths twitched. It was Yiguchin. It's that Jin Kuei from the Sword Dynasty again. Is he really not afraid of causing too much trouble? Yeah, he offended the various dynasties and Qin Qing Shao at the martial tablet. Now, he even dares to offend young Master Xuanzhen. Many people were stunned and shook their heads. They felt that Yiguchin was digging his own grave. Offending Chu Xuanzhen, one of the top 10 young masters, on the eve of the opening of the sacred imperial world was tantamount to digging his own grave. The smile on Chu Xuanzhen's face slowly disappeared. Given his status, there shouldn't be many young people who dared to offend him. At least the elites of the dynasties were not qualified to do so. Even Jin Kuei from the Sword Dynasty was the same. Ha! As I expected, he's really stupid. Chen Qingshao couldn't help but sneer. Those who were hostile to Yiguchin also sneered. Well. The old man hesitated and looked at Chu Xuanzhen. Chu Xuanzhen said indifferently, let's have a fair competition. He didn't think that Yi Guqin could offer something more valuable than 10 enlightenment pills. Then, Yi Guqin went directly to the private room at the back and secretly took out the things he wanted to exchange. Then, he returned to his seat. Many people were curious. Could Yi Guqin's things be better than Chu Xuanzhen's? In less than 15 minutes, the old man came back and looked at Yi Guqin strangely. Then, he announced, "The guest has decided, the girl of the Su family will belong to." Chu Xuanzhen smiled. "Jiankui from the Sword Dynasty." The old man shouted. The smile on Chu Xuanzhen's face froze. Everyone present also looked at Yi Guqin in shock. Chu Xuanzhen's things are better than his? That's unbelievable. However, only Yi Guqin knew that the result was normal. This was because Yi Guqin had taken out a branch from the Tree of Enlightenment, along with dozens of Tree of Enlightenment leaves. As long as that person wasn't a fool, he would know what to choose. This time, Chu Xuanzhen was in a dilemma. He calmed himself down and turned to look at Yi Guqin. "Jiankui, I know you're in a bad situation now. I'll give you a chance. Give the girl of the Su family to me and I can reluctantly accept you as my follower. No one in the Holy Emperor realm will dare to touch you." Chu Xuanzhen's words made Xiao Weihuang, Chen Qingshao, and the princes and princesses of the great Qian dynasty change their expressions. If Chu Xuanzhen protected him, no one in the Holy Emperor realm would dare to attack Yi Guqin. "Oh." Yi Guqin's lips curled into a faint smile. Chu Xuanzhen continued, "Of course, not only that, you might have a chance to go to the Heavenly God Sword sect in the future. You might be rewarded by senior brother Haoyan and even become his follower. That's a blessing that you can't get in 3 lifetimes." Chu Xuanzhen couldn't hide his admiration when he mentioned Di Haoyan. However, Yi Guqin's eyes flashed with sharpness. He was already tired of Chu Xuanzhen's condescending tone. When he mentioned Di Haoyan, Yi Guqin was filled with killing intent. "I only have one thing to say," Yi Guqin said indifferently. "What is it?" Chu Xuanzhen narrowed his eyes. "Who do you think you are? Who does Di Haoyan think he is?" Chapter 12:21. Yi Guqin's words echoed throughout the pavilion. Instantly, everyone's brain seemed to have short-circuited. Many people even thought that they were hallucinating. What did Yi Guqin say? Who are Chu Xuanzhen and Di Haoyan? After a short moment of silence, there was an endless uproar and shock. "Crazy, Jiankui from the Sword Dynasty is definitely crazy. Yeah, he's hopeless. Not only did he offend Chen Qingshao and the others, but now he even dares to insult young Master Xuanzhen and Haoyan True Dragon. Who gave him the courage? He's really a frog at the bottom of the well who doesn't know the immensity of the world. In the entire Nantian region, who has the right to say such words?" There was an uproar. They were all shocked by Yi Guqin's words. Chu Xuanzhen's face immediately darkened. Yi Guqin's words were not only contempt for him, but also an insult to Di Haoyan. "Do you know how ignorant and stupid your words are?" Chu Xuanzhen said coldly. "I don't think there's anything wrong with it," Yi Guqin said calmly. He was the only person among the younger generation in the Nantian region who could seriously injure Di Haoyan. Chu Xuanzhen said that he wanted him to become Di Haoyan's follower, which was too ridiculous. Of course, this was also because Chu Xuanzhen didn't know Yi Guqin's true identity. Jiankui really doesn't know how to spell the word death. Chen Qingshao and the other enemies were watching coldly from the sidelines. How could they offend someone as powerful as one of the top 10 young masters? Chu Xuanzhen's sword qi flowed around his body, and a vast pressure pressed down on Yi Guqin like an avalanche. Yi Guqin, on the other hand, stood with his hands behind his back. His aura was restrained and he was like a reef in the storm, not moving at all. Chu Xuanzhen's eyes were deep. Jiankui, who was rumored to have his spiritual residence destroyed by Huang Qianqiu, didn't seem to be that simple. At this moment, the old man in charge of the trade fair also said, "Young Master Xuanzhen, this is the trade fair. Please calm down." In truth, the old man was also somewhat displeased. Just now, it was Chu Xuanzhen who said it was a fair competition. In the end, Yi Guqin got the girl from the Su family, and Chu Xuanzhen wanted to snatch her away. Chu Xuanzhen was completely unreasonable. Okay. Chu Xuanzhen took a deep breath and calmed down. It was indeed not good for him to act up at the trade fair. After that, the trade fair came to an end. Chu Xuanzhen did not do anything. He just glanced at Yi Guqin indifferently. However, Yi Guqin caught the murderous intent that flashed through his eyes. Yi Guqin did not mind. All the grudges would be settled in the Holy Imperial Universe. Chen Qingshao and the others sneered. The enemies that Yi Guqin had provoked were simply too many. Many people wondered if Yi Guqin had been killed as soon as he entered the Holy Imperial Universe. Therefore, many of the dynasty's prodigies looked at Yi Guqin sympathetically. Even Jian Jinghong, Xuanlian, and the others looked very serious. They did not blame Yi Guqin for provoking Chu Xuanzhen and the others. If it were them, they would not be able to tolerate the arrogance and overbearingness of Chu Xuanzhen and the other overlord prodigies. Ha, Jinkui, this girl from the Su family is yours. There is a restriction in her body. She is no different from an ordinary person. She can't fight back at all, the old man said as he handed over a jade talisman. With this jade talisman, he could remove the restriction in the girl from the Su family. What are you waiting for? The old man said. The iron cage was opened, and the girl from the Su family trembled as she walked out. Although she was a little dirty, she was delicate and pretty, and her looks were not ordinary. Especially her pair of almond-shaped eyes that were filled with tears, she looked very pitiful. At this moment, the girl from the Su family was very nervous and uneasy. Fortunately, she was not exchanged with Chu Xuanzhen from the Heavenly God Sword sect. However, she did not know what Jinkui from the Sword dynasty was thinking. Would he do anything overboard to her? At the thought of this, the girl from the Su family felt a little uneasy. Then, the people from the Sword dynasty left the pavilion. On the street, Yi Guqin's heart skipped a beat. He sensed that someone had been watching him in the dark. He stopped in his tracks and said, "Brother Jinghong, you guys go back first. I have something else to do." When Jian Jinghong and the others heard this, they were slightly stunned. They then looked at the girl from the Su family behind Yi Guqin. It was inevitable that there would be some misunderstanding. When the girl from the Su family heard Yi Guqin's words, her delicate body trembled like a little white rabbit. Tears welled up in her eyes. Yi Guqin, in particular, was wearing a ghost mask on his face, which made her tremble with fear. "Master, you have to be careful," Mu Xingzu said naturally. She was the person who believed in Yi Guqin's character the most. He would never do anything to the girl from the Su family. Then, Jian Jinghong and the others left. Yi Guqin took the girl from the Su family and walked aimlessly. "What's your name?" Yi Guqin asked while walking. I'm called Su Qiqing." The girl from the Su family named Su Qiqing said. "Besides you, are there any other survivors from the Su family?" Yi Guqin continued to ask. Su Qiqing pursed her lips. She was very vigilant and did not say a word. "Seems like there are other Su family members," Yi Guqin said. But thinking about it, it was normal. After all, the Su family was once one of the 5 hegemonic families. As the saying goes, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Although a hegemonic family could be destroyed because of a siege, it was impossible for all of them to die. There would always be a small number of people who managed to escape. If we can get in touch with those Su family members who escaped, they might be a force to deal with Heavenly God Sword sect in the future. Yi Guqin muttered in his heart. He had a premonition that in the future, there would definitely be a great war with Heavenly God Sword sect, Starry Sword Pavilion, and other forces. At that time, Yi Guqin alone would definitely not be able to reverse the situation. He would need to unite the forces of all sides. Even if the remaining forces of the Su family were unable to become a force, they were still a force that could not be ignored. Then, Yiguchin brought Su Qiqing to a dark and empty alley. What are you going to do? Su Qiqing shrank back and retreated step by step. Tears flowed down uncontrollably. In this kind of environment, this kind of action. In Su Qiqing's heart, there was an 80% chance that something bad was going to happen. Don't worry, I will never hurt the Su family. Yiguchin slowly raised his hand and took off the strange ghost mask on his face, revealing a handsome face. His gaze was very gentle and clear, without any distracting thoughts. So handsome, Su Qiqing's tear-stained jade cheeks were slightly stunned. She did not expect that under that terrifying ghost mask, there would be such a handsome face. Coupled with Yiguchin's gentle tone, Su Qiqing's uneasy heart gradually calmed down. He doesn't seem to be a bad person, Su Qiqing thought. Looking at Su Qiqing's appearance, Yiguchin finally understood why she was captured. Her temperament was indeed somewhat pure. But right now, the most important thing was not Su Qiqing's matter. Yiguchin suddenly spoke. Come out, there's no need to follow behind. Do you think I didn't notice you? Chapter 12:22. Huh? Su Qiqing was slightly taken aback. Yiguchin didn't seem to be talking to her. Are you still not coming out? Then I'll really take this little girl away, Yiguchin said. Heh. It's rumored that Jin Kuei of the Sword Dynasty had his spiritual abode destroyed. I didn't expect his soul perception to still be so sharp. When did you find out? A clear and beautiful voice sounded like a warbler leaving the valley. At the entrance of the dark alley, a handsome young man with a jade crown and hair tied up walked in. His face was incomparably handsome, and his peach blossom eyes were watery, which was extremely lethal to both men and women. However, at this moment, his eyes were cold as he stared at Yiguchin. Especially after Yiguchin brought Su Qiqing into the dark alley, it made his heart even colder. In his opinion, Yiguchin probably didn't bring Su Qiqing to this corner for any good reason. He could only do those kinds of dirty things. Should I call you brother or miss? Yiguchin said indifferently. Humph. I didn't expect that the dignified Jin Kuei of the Sword Dynasty would actually do such dirty things. Previously, when I saw that you were unyielding and confronted Chu Xuanzhen and the others head-on, I thought you were a character. In the end, it's hard to tell what's in a person's heart. This handsome young man who was disguised as a man seemed to be quite disappointed with Yiguchin. No. Su Qiqing stammered and wanted to explain. She could see that Yiguchin really didn't have any dirty thoughts about her. Yiguchin frowned slightly and said, Miss, you're being a little presumptuous to judge the character of others without knowing anything. Isn't that so? The handsome young man raised his eyebrows slightly. It's not like that. He has no ill intentions towards me, Su Qiqing said. You're so naive that you'll be caught by others. The handsome young man seemed to be a little disappointed. Yiguchin's eyes dimmed. From her tone, she seemed to care about Su Qiqing. Could it be? Yiguchin had a thought. Su Qiqing also noticed it, and a hint of confusion flashed across her eyes. She seemed to have heard that handsome young master's voice somewhere before. Hand over the girl, the handsome young master said. Why? Yiguchin asked. Since you've seen through my disguise, you naturally know that I won't do anything to her. The handsome prince seemed to be angered by Yiguchin, and his chest began to rise and fall. Who knows? Yiguchin said. Heh. Then let me see just how much ability you, the Jin Kuei of the Sword Dynasty, have. The handsome young master suddenly attacked, his jade-like palm brushing out. All of a sudden, the powerful strength of the seventh layer of the divine dwelling erupted. So powerful! Su Qiqing exclaimed. She did not expect this handsome young master to be so powerful. Yiguchin also raised his eyebrows. The handsome young master's strength was indeed beyond his expectations. He was almost one of the top geniuses in the South Horizon region. Who is she, and what is her identity? Ye Guqin was full of doubts. However, Ye Guqin did not surrender. He did not use the power of the flawless divine dwelling in his body, but purely used the power of his physical body. Ye Guqin's physical strength had lit up 85 levels of the martial steel, and it was enough to sweep across one side. However, after a few exchanges, Ye Guqin discovered that the handsome young master's moves were mostly probing, and he did not really want to kill him. Obviously, the handsome young master did not want to fight to the death with Ye Guqin. After a few exchanges, the handsome young master's peach blossom eyes revealed a strange light. Although Ye Guqin did not use his genuine qi, his powerful physical strength was enough to surprise people. Jiankui, your strength is really beyond my expectations. It seems that it won't be that easy for Chu Xuanjun and the others to kill you. Although the handsome young master did not use his full strength, his cultivation was still at the 7th layer of the divine dwelling. It was already very good that Ye Guqin could exchange blows with her. But she did not know that Ye Guqin was also far from using his full strength. You two, please stop fighting. Qiqing knows that you are not bad people, Su Qiqing advised. The handsome young master and Ye Guqin stopped fighting at the same time. Ye Guqin said indifferently, since you want Su Qiqing to follow you, then let her follow you. Oh, you are willing to give this little girl to me? The handsome young master's flawless face revealed a look of surprise. She did not know why Ye Guqin's attitude had changed. Because I know that not only will you not harm her, you will also take good care of her. Ye Guqin smiled indifferently. In his heart, he already had some guesses about the identity of this handsome young master. In exchange for this girl, you should have paid a high price. Are you really willing to give her to me? The handsome young master asked. Why not? It's just a small price. Besides, I have already become enemies with Chu Xuanjun. It may not be a good thing for Su Qiqing to be by my side. On the contrary, you are more likely to take care of her. Ye Guqin was very carefree. The handsome young master stared blankly at Ye Guqin, a strange look flashing across her sparkling peach blossom eyes. She cupped her hands slightly at Ye Guqin and said, Sorry, I misunderstood you before. I apologize here. Ye Guqin shook his head slightly and did not care. The handsome young master thought for a moment, then took out a jade slip and said, I saw that you also wanted to exchange for this at the trade fair. Maybe it will be useful to you. Here, I will give it to you. Ye Guqin's eyes flashed when he looked at it. This jade slip contained the spatial shrinking technique. Jiankui, you don't have to refuse. I have already made a copy, so this jade slip is useless to me. Ye Guqin nodded and reached out to receive it. He was not a pretentious person. This spatial shrinking technique was indeed very useful to him. Next, Ye Guqin took out the jade talisman with the restriction and crushed it. Suddenly, the aura in Su Qiqing's body recovered, and the restriction was broken. She also had a cultivation of the 3rd layer of the divine dwelling stage. Her strength was not weak. You should follow this girl well in the future. She will not treat you badly, Ye Guqin said. Thank you. Su Qiqing sincerely thanked him. Although she was also very puzzled as to why Jiankui of the Sword Dynasty would take care of her, a member of the Su family. But she did not ask any more questions. Then we shall part for now. But, you seem to particularly dislike forces like the Heavenly God's Sword Sect and the Starry Sword Pavilion. The handsome young master said with a deep meaning. Ye Guqin did not evade and directly said, Yes, I dislike them very much. If I meet them, I want to kill them. The handsome young master suddenly chuckled. Then perhaps there is a possibility of us working together in the battlefield of the heavenly prides. Okay. Ye Guqin nodded. It was better to have one more friend than one more enemy. The handsome young master was about to leave with Su Qiqing, but she paused and looked back with a smile. By the way, I forgot to tell you my name. I am Ni Shang. After speaking, the tomboy named Ni Sheng blinked her beautiful peach blossom eyes, and there was a hint of coquettishness in her charming eyes. When Su Qiqing heard the name Ni Sheng, her beautiful eyes suddenly widened. So you are. Su Qiqing could not help but speak, but she was immediately interrupted by Ni Sheng. Okay, let's go. Ni Sheng pulled Su Qiqing's hand and left. Chapter 12:23. Ni Sheng, interesting. Ye Guchen was deep in thought as he watched Ni Sheng and Su Qiqing leave. Logically speaking, with Ni Sheng's strength at the 7th level of the Divine Dwelling Realm, it was impossible for her to be unknown among the younger generation of the South Sky region. Even if she couldn't become one of the 10 great young masters, she should at least be on the Dragon Phoenix list. However, Ni Sheng's name wasn't on the Dragon Phoenix list. Could it be that it's really as I guessed? Her identity. Ye Guchen pondered. Ye Guchen shook his head slightly and put this matter aside for the time being. He believed that he might have some interactions with Ni Sheng in the future, so he wasn't in a hurry to think about her identity. I'd better go back into seclusion first and see if I can combine shrinking Earth into an inch and so close, yet worlds apart to deduce the complete immemorial divine technique. After Ye Guchen returned, Jian Jinghong and the others also noticed that Su Qiqing didn't follow him back. However, they didn't ask too much. After all, that was Ye Guchen's own business. In the following time, Ye Guchen prepared to start comprehending shrinking Earth into an inch and see if he could combine it with so close, yet worlds apart to deduce the cultivation method of the divine technique. However, at that moment, Ye Guchen's expression suddenly changed, and a faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. They're finally here. At the same time, a few black ships appeared outside the sacred city of fortune. On the deck of the leading ship stood Dugu Qiuma and Princess Luo Ho. The prodigy of the Mola dynasty is here. Is that white-haired young man Dugu Qiuma, who has risen to fame recently? He indeed has an extraordinary aura. Yes, I heard that Dugu Qiuma could even fight with Gu Xiaoyang of the Star Universe Sword Pavilion without being at a disadvantage. In that case, doesn't the Mola dynasty have a prodigy at the level of one of the 10 great young masters this time? That's not necessarily true. Who knows if Gu Xiaoyang did his best at that time? Dugu Qiuma's arrival caused a lot of discussion in the sacred city of fortune. After all, during this period of time, various news about Dugu seeking a demon had spread to many empires. Many people believed that Dugu Qiuma was definitely on the same level as Zhao Shinkong and Jian Jinghong, standing at the pinnacle of the dynasty's prodigies and comparable to the prodigies of the overlord-level forces. Qiu Mo, perhaps we can first go to the Martial Tablet and Saint Lotus to test our cultivation potential and assess our strength, said Princess Luo Ho. Sure, I'm also very curious about my current level, Dugu Qiuma said with a faint smile. However, I've heard that someone in the holy city of good fortune once caused the 50 leaves of the holy lotus to bloom. I wonder who it was. Princess Luo Ho's tone was a little surprised. She was obviously very surprised by this news. Dugu Qiuma smiled but didn't say anything. He naturally knew who it was that had triggered the 50 leaves of the Saint Lotus. Next, Dugu begged Demon and Princess Luo Ho to head to the location of the Martial Steel's Divine Lotus. This move also attracted the attention of a large number of people. After all, the Mola dynasty was ranked 3rd, and Dugu Qiuma's reputation was not weak. They all wanted to know what level Dugu Qiuma's cultivation and talent had reached. Soon, Dugu Qiuma arrived at the testing location. Princess Luo Ho was the first to test. She held the death scythe that had transformed into a 10th tribulation divine weapon. She gathered the true qi in her body and slashed at the martial tablet with the scythe. Boom! Waves of air surged as the martial tablet lit up. It rushed to the 87th step. Then, Princess Luo Ho landed in front of the Saint Lotus again and placed her snow-white hand on it to test it. She had the Fiend's Star Luo Ho birth chart, so her talent was definitely not low. As expected, the Holy Lotus had a total of 36 leaves. This was definitely not a low number. As expected of Princess Luo Ho. Her battle prowess and talent are not inferior to the prodigies of the overlord-level forces. I wonder how Duguqilma will perform. No one was surprised by Princess Luoho's test results. However, compared to Princess Luoho, they were more interested in how Duguqilma would perform. Princess Luoho's gaze also landed on Duguqilma. She also wanted to know how amazing her man's performance would be. Duguqilma's expression was indifferent. He clenched his fist and threw a simple punch at the martial tablet. Violent blood-red Azura True Chi surged out of the Azura divine residence and wrapped around his arm like a blood-red ribbon. Boom! Accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion, the martial tablet lit up with an incomparably dazzling light. In the end, the lights stopped at the 92nd step. Hiss! Hiss! Gasps could be heard from all directions. Duguqilma's battle prowess index was so high that it made one's hair stand on end. Beyond the 90th step, his battle prowess was comparable to the 10 great young masters. In fact, he could even go toe-to-toe with the 4 sovereigns. He's so powerful. Many people's breathing quickened. Their eyes were filled with anticipation and curiosity. If Duguqilma was so powerful, how talented would he be? Would there be someone among the dynasty's prodigies who could crush the overlord forces? The various dynasties' prodigies were all excited. At this moment, the people from the other dynasties also rushed over after hearing the news. Zhao Shinkong, Zhao Weihuang, Zhao Xiaodi, and the others from the War God dynasty. The princes and princesses of the great Qian dynasty. Crown Prince Xingyang and the others from the Sky Star dynasty. Of course, there was also a group of people who attracted everyone's attention. That group of people had long sabers on their backs, and they had a strong and surging saber chi. It's the people from the tyrannical Saber dynasty. Many people were shocked. They did not expect that even the tyrannical Saber dynasty would be alarmed by Duguqilma. The leader of the tyrannical Saber dynasty team had 3 sabers on his back. He had a cold and arrogant aura, and he was also paying attention to Duguqilma. It's the top saber of the tyrannical Saber dynasty, Zhangsun Aojue. Many people looked at the arrogant man with surprise. The top saber of the tyrannical Saber dynasty was extremely powerful. His 3 saber techniques were invincible in the tyrannical Saber dynasty. At this moment, Duguqilma was the center of attention. He walked in front of the sacred lotus and placed his hand on it. Compared to Yi Guqin, there was no need for him to hide too much. The sacred lotus began to emit light, and the lotus petals bloomed one by one. Then, the lotus petals bloomed at an extremely fast speed while everyone watched in shock. 12 petals, 13 petals. 25 petals, 26 petals, 38 petals, 39 petals. When the number of lotus petals bloomed exceeded 40, everyone present felt their scalps go numb. Could it be that they were witnessing a miracle today? 46 petals, 47 petals, 48 petals, everyone's breathing quickened as if they were the ones doing the test. Their hearts were in their throats. In the end, everyone watched. The 49th lotus petal slowly bloomed. There was dead silence. There were clearly tens of thousands of people present, but at this moment, there was no sound at all. Many people opened their mouths silently, and it was as if thunder was rumbling in their minds. Zhao Xiaodi covered her mouth in disbelief, as if she had seen a miracle. After a short moment of dead silence, there was an uproar that shook the sky. A dynasty's genius had risen to the top and was on par with Di Haotian's record. Everyone was shocked. Chapter 12:24. A strong uproar spread like a tide. Many people even thought that they were seeing things. They rubbed their eyes and continued to look. The result was still the same. Duguqilma's holy lotus had 49 petals, which was the same as Di Haotian's true dragon and Di Haotian's. What kind of shocking scene was this? Di Haotian's extraordinary was no longer needed to be described in words. In many people's minds, few young geniuses could stand shoulder to shoulder with Di Haotian, apart from some of the geniuses of the 3 hidden forces. Even someone as strong as Huang Qianqiu had always regarded Di Haotian as a goal to surpass. But now, a genius from a dynasty had been tested to stand shoulder to shoulder with Di Haotian. What did this mean? Everyone was shocked to the core. Putting aside his battle prowess, at least in terms of talent, Duguqiu Mo was definitely not weaker than Di Haotian. Many people looked at the 49-petaled holy lotus and could not calm down for a long time. Is he that powerful? Zhao Xiaodi was shocked. Her talent was already amazing. During the holy lotus test, she had triggered 39 petals, which amazed everyone. But compared to Duguqiu Mo's results, it was nothing. Zhao Shinkong, Zhao Weihuang, and the others also had shocked and grave expressions on their faces. Duguqiu Mo's performance could not be described as amazing. It had subverted everyone's imagination. Fortunately, we don't have any conflicts with Duguqiu Mo, otherwise, he would definitely be a strong enemy in the Holy Emperor realm, Zhao Shinkong said solemnly. Even he said so, it was obvious that he was afraid of Duguqiu Mo. Yes, not only do we not have any conflicts with Duguqiu Mo, but we also have a common goal. Zhao Weihuang also felt lucky and smiled. The common goal he was referring to was naturally the 13 swordsmen led by Yi Guqian. But Zhao Weihuang did not know that Duguqiu Mo was Yi Guqian's clone. Zhang Sun Aojue and the others from the Tyrant Blade dynasty were also shocked. The princes and princesses of the Great Qian dynasty were also shocked and in awe. Only Crown Prince Xingyang and the others from the Heavenly Star dynasty didn't look too good. This was because Crown Prince Xingyang knew that Duguqiu Mo had a conflict with Gu Xiaoyang. The Heavenly Star dynasty belonged to the Starry Universe Sword Pavilion, so Crown Prince Xingyang naturally didn't want to see Dugu begging demons like this. There are really many dark horses in this Sky Pride battlefield. First, there was a ruthless person who managed to trigger 50 leaves of the Saint Lotus, surpassing Di Haotian. Now, there's another person who's on par with Di Haotian. That's right. I'm looking forward to seeing how Duguqiu Mo performs in the Holy Imperial Universe. If he runs into Di Haotian in the future, will he be able to defeat him? I'm afraid that's a little difficult. Although his talent is on par with Di Haotian's, it doesn't represent his strength. The debate about whether Di Haotian or Duguqiu Mo was stronger. Most people still thought that Di Haotian had the absolute advantage. At this moment, Duguqiu Mo frowned and said, "Only on par with Di Haotian?" Duguqiu Mo seemed to be dissatisfied with this result. He had 5 talents, the talent of the soul-devouring clan, and the inheritance of the Azura Sage King. Duguqiu Mo wasn't surprised by this result. Instead, he was somewhat dissatisfied. According to his expectations, his results should be the same as Yi Guqian's. But now, he was only on par with Di Haotian. Hearing Duguqiu Mo's words, the surrounding Sky Prides were shocked. Only on par with Di Haotian? The word "only" was very spiritual. Is this even human? Many Sky Prides from various dynasties thought to themselves. This was a result that others couldn't even dream of. Even Princess Luo Ho was speechless. She said, "Qiu Mo, this is already a very good result." I know. Duguqiu Mo nodded slightly. The test had come to an end. Many people were also sighing. If it weren't for the mysterious Sky Pride who triggered 50 leaves of the Saint Lotus, Duguqiu Mo would have been on par with Di Haotian. Duguqiu Mo's result today was definitely outstanding. Just as Duguqiu Mo was about to leave, a voice rang out. "Brother Dugu, please wait." Duguqiu Mo stopped in his tracks and looked at the person who had spoken. The person who had stopped him was Zhao Weihuang. "What is it?" Duguqiu Mo raised his eyebrows and asked. He wasn't interested in talking to this person who was destined to be his enemy. Zhao Weihuang smiled faintly and said, "In the last war between dynasties, the Mola dynasty also suffered a great loss. You also lost saints. What are you trying to say?" Duguqiu Mo's tone was cold. The Sword Dynasty is the common enemy of all 3 dynasties. I wonder if Brother Duguqiu Mo is interested in killing the 13 swordsmen in the Holy Imperial World. Zhao Weihuang smiled faintly as if he was very confident that the Mola dynasty would work with them. Before Dugu Qiuma could say anything, Princess Luo Ho said, "That would be best." In the last war, the people sent by the Mola dynasty were also all killed. Not to mention, I have some conflicts with Yi Guqin. Ha, brother Dugu Qiuma Ho, your princess has agreed. What about you? Zhao Weihuang asked. Dugu Qiuma's eyes flickered and then he said, "Sure." Ha, then I look forward to working with you. Zhao Weihuang laughed heartily. With Dugu Qiuma Ho's help, Zhao Weihuang was almost 100% confident that they could kill the 13 swordsmen in the Holy Imperial World. Ah, now the Sword Dynasty is really in trouble. Yes, Dugu Qiuma Ho is too strong. Even if the Jiankui's spiritual abode was not destroyed, it would be difficult for him to deal with Dugu Qiuma. Many people around shook their heads as if they could already see the scene of the 13 swordsmen slaughtering the Holy Imperial World. Dugu Qiuma's test results shook the entire Holy City of Fortune. Not only was his combat strength extraordinary, but his aptitude was even comparable to the true dragon of Haotian. Even Princess Luo Ho's birth mother, the Demon Queen, was shocked. She was glad that she had a good eye. For a time, Dugu Qiuma was in the limelight in the Holy City of Fortune. It was so much so that some people from the overlord-level powers had already begun to contact Dugu Qiuma, wanting to pull him into their faction. However, Dugu Qiuma Ho declined. He did not forget his promise with Wichuan. Other things aside, the Demonic Destruction sect had the Demonic Destruction Heart Sutra that Dugu Qiuma needed. Therefore, if there was a chance, Dugu Qiuma would still join the Demonic Destruction sect. On the other side, Jian Jingheng, Xuanlian, Mu Xingzu, and the others found Yi Guqin. The situation is not good. Dugu Qiuma Ho is too strong. If even he targets the Sword Dynasty, we will be in a very passive situation. Jian Jingheng frowned. When he heard the results of Dugu Qiuma Ho's test, he was also shocked. Later, he heard that Zhao Weihuang had found Dugu Qiuma Ho and wanted to join forces with him to deal with the Sword Dynasty. Don't worry. Yi Guqin smiled faintly, looking very calm. If Zhao Weihuang knew that Dugu Qiuma Ho was only one of his avatars, what kind of expression would Zhao Weihuang have? Chapter 1225. The reason why Dugu Qiuma agreed to Zhao Weihuang's request. It was just to make it easier for him to attack in the future. When the time came, Dugu Qiuma would give his enemies a big surprise. Are you sure we don't have to worry? Mu Xingzu was also worried. However, she had always trusted Yi Guqin. When she saw Yi Guqin's calm expression, she regained her composure. That's right. Since it's the truth, we'll just have to deal with whatever comes our way. The Sword Dynasty is not that easy to bully. Jian Jingheng also smiled. So what if Dugu Qiuma was strong? Could he kill them all in an instant? Looking at the Sword Sons who treated Dugu Qiuma as their mortal enemy, Yi Guqin was speechless. In fact, Dugu Qiuma was an ally, however, Yi Guqin did not explain much. After all, everyone would know when the time came. After that, they did not disturb Yi Guqin's cultivation. Yi Guqin was also deeply comprehending the two ultimate techniques, so close, yet worlds apart and distance reduction. During this time, Yi Guqin also used the Enlightenment Leaf and other treasures to aid in his comprehension. After a few days, the day of the opening of the Holy Imperial World finally arrived. At this time, Yi Guqin, who was sitting cross-legged in his room, suddenly opened his eyes. He felt enlightened. Finally. I've succeeded, Yi Guqin heaved a sigh of relief. He did not expect that he would be able to completely integrate these two techniques before the opening of the Holy Imperial World and derive the immemorial divine movement secret skill. However, this was also thanks to Yi Guqin's monstrous comprehension. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, even if they could derive the divine movement secret skill, it would probably take a lot of time. Yi Guqin's sky-devouring secret skill had a total of 5 levels. The complete version of the divine movement secret skill that he had derived was divided into 4 levels: chasing lightning, chasing light, void treading, and astral wander. Chasing lightning, as the name suggested, after reaching this level, one's movements would be as fast as lightning. As for chasing light, its speed was even faster, like a rainbow. Void treading referred to walking on the void. It was almost as if one had flashed into the void. As for the highest level, the astral travel secret skill, it was the great accomplishment of the divine travel secret skill. After successfully cultivating it, the astral travel secret skill would allow the astral travel secret skill to travel freely in the void realms. As expected of one of the 10 great ancient secret techniques, it is truly profound. After he finished comprehending, Yi Guqin sighed. Since he had the lightning sword Dao, it would be helpful for him to comprehend the first level of chasing lightning. The Holy Imperial Universe is finally opening. Yi Guqin got up and walked out of the room. Outside the pavilion, the members of Sword Dynasty were already prepared. The auras of the 13 sword sons were piercingly cold and high-spirited. They were like sharp swords that had been unsheathed and emitted a sharp light. This battle was extremely dangerous. Of course, if he succeeded in the end, the rewards he would reap would be unimaginable. Everyone, today is the opening day of the Holy Imperial Universe. I hope you can return victorious. Confuzi encouraged. We will return victorious. Jian Jinghong and the others were excited. Yi Guqin's expression was calm and composed. However, the flames of war were gradually rising in his dark eyes. In the Holy Imperial Universe, he wanted to settle things with some people. At this moment, within the holy city of good fortune, numerous floating ships rose into the air. The ships were packed with people. The teams of the major forces were all heading in the same direction. On the way to the Holy Imperial Universe, Yi Guqin had asked out of curiosity why no one from the overlord families had appeared. Confuzi explained that the 4 overlord families each had their own opportunities in the land of ancestral ancestors. Therefore, they did not place too much importance on the opportunities in the Holy Imperial Universe. However, when the burial island opened, the 4 overlord families would definitely appear. Yi Guqin nodded slightly. The reason why he had asked this question was because, among his enemies, the Dongfang family was also one of his enemies. Furthermore, the destruction of the Su family had a lot to do with the Dongfang family. However, right now, Yi Guqin's focus was still on the battle for the Holy Imperial Universe. After a period of time, Yi Guqin finally saw the location of the Holy Imperial Universe. In the void above the sky, there was a huge space crack. Spiritual energy gushed out from the space crack. Celestial light bloomed. Various topographical features could be vaguely seen. It was like a paradise that was independent of heaven and earth. Is that the Holy Imperial Universe? A small world in the body of an immortal saint emperor, Yi Guqin looked over. His heart was in turmoil. In the Jianghu where he lived in his previous life, the strongest cultivator could only split mountains and cut off rivers. However, in this world, the strongest could evolve a complete small world in their own body. What kind of supreme power was this? Immortal Saint Emperor? I will definitely reach this level. Yi Guqin's eyes were burning with flames. His goal was to reach the peak of martial arts. The Immortal Saint Emperor's world-creating power had deeply stimulated Yi Guqin's mind. He wanted to become stronger. He wanted to dominate. He wanted to ascend to the immortal realm and destroy all his enemies. I must obtain the great opportunity in the Holy Imperial Universe. Yi Guqin was determined. At this moment, countless ships were parked outside the space crack of the Holy Imperial Universe. Densely packed figures entered the space crack like locusts. They were afraid that they would be one step slower. Among these people, there were many geniuses with powerful cultivation. The geniuses on the Dragon Phoenix list were followed by a group of people. Those were their followers. After entering the Holy Imperial Universe, you must be careful. It's best not to provoke the geniuses of the Overlord forces. Also, we can watch the scene inside the Holy Imperial Universe from the outside, Kenfuzi said. Yi Guqin looked around. Indeed, he saw the space crack outside the Holy Imperial Universe. Some powerful warriors were using their own methods. Many screens of light appeared in the void, reflecting the scenes in the Holy Imperial Universe. Some of the overlord forces were also paying close attention to their geniuses. Even though they could not enter the Holy Imperial Universe and could not interfere with the battles inside, they could still feel at ease if they could observe in real time. Then, Deans, we will go in now. Yi Guqin cupped his fists. Then, he, Jian Jinghong and the others entered the space crack. At this moment, he felt many gazes on him. Sympathy, pity, indifference, watching a show, murderous intent, and many other emotions. Chu Xuanzhen, Chen Qingshao, Zhao Weihuang, Crown Prince Xingyang, Zhang Sun Aojue, and many others entered at the same time. They all looked at Yi Guqin coldly. There were two other figures who also wanted to enter. They were Dugu Qiuma and Princess Luoho. When Princess Luoho saw Yi Guqin, she smiled coldly and said, Dugu Wubai, I still remember clearly what happened with the Sacred Dynasty's relic. I will make you pay for it in the Holy Imperial Universe. Oh. Yi Guqin looked at Princess Luoho strangely. Princess Luoho put her arm around Dugu Qiuma's and said, Qiuma, if you meet this Dugu Wubai in the Holy Imperial Universe, don't hold back. Dugu Qiuma raised his head and looked at Yi Guqin in the void. The corners of his mouth faintly curled up into a smile. Okay. Chapter 12:26. The Holy Imperial World was a small world evolved from the immortal Saint Emperor. The small world evolved from the body of such a powerful cultivator might not be comparable to a real world, but it was not far off. It was like a miniature world. As soon as Yi Guqin stepped into the spatial crack, he felt the world was spinning. It was as if the world had been turned upside down. There were ripples in the void around him. In the blink of an eye, the world around Yi Guqin changed its appearance. He landed on a desolate desert. The land was barren and the wind was strong. The sky was high and there were even suns and moons rotating in the sky. Is this the Holy Imperial World? Yi Guqin looked around and exclaimed. It was not a real world, but it was no different from a real world. If some mortals lived here, they would not think that it was just a small world inside someone else's body. If that's the case, is it possible that the 9 regions are just small worlds inside the bodies of powerful cultivators? Yi Guqin could not help but speculate. But he still shook his head. He did not think it was possible. The Holy Imperial World was large, but it was far from being comparable to the Nantian region, let alone the 9 regions. Finding opportunities is more important, Yi Guqin said to himself. Jian Jinghong and the others were no longer around him. Clearly, when they passed through the spatial crack, the void was distorted and they were teleported to different places in the Holy Imperial World. But that was good. If they moved together, they would be safe, but the chances of finding opportunities would be much smaller. Plus, there would not be enough for them to share. Kenfuzi and the others said that the greatest opportunities in the Holy Imperial World are in the inner circle. I should be in the outer circle now, Yi Guqin thought. After he confirmed the direction of the inner circle, he began to move. He used a strand of the power of the thunder sword to support the 9-colored Xian thunder. As he moved, the 9-colored Xian thunder twirled around his feet. As Yi Guqin moved, he cultivated the first level of the secret skill of swift, chasing lightning. In just a breath's time, Yi Guqin's figure moved like a thunderbolt and flashed 1,000 feet away. The divine movement secret technique is indeed extraordinary. I've only started cultivating the first level, but my speed is already twice as fast as the previous, so close, yet worlds apart. Yi Guqin secretly praised. Then, he began to move in a certain direction. During this period of time, he also discovered people from other dynasties. When some of the dynasty forces saw Yi Guqin, they immediately retreated. On the other hand, some people had crooked ideas. They believed that since Yi Guqin could not use his genuine qi, even if he had a good physical strength, he would not be able to compete with them. Along the way, Yiguchin had encountered several such groups of people. In the end, they were all killed by Yiguchin. The competition at the Holy Imperial Universe was cruel. Apart from his own people, everyone else was his opponent. Therefore, Yiguchin did not hold back. 10,000 treasure crag, a sacred material. After killing another group of people, Yiguchin got a piece of information from this group of people. In the outer circle, there was a place called 10,000 treasure crag, which was full of underground caves. There might be sacred materials in it, which attracted many people's attention. Let's go and take a look. Yiguchin thought as he flashed away. He valued sacred materials very much. Because Yiguchin did not forget that he had inherited the taboo forging technique of the heaven forging edge. He could forge swords with his human soul and cultivate both sword and life. He also did not forget to forge a famed sword that completely belonged to him. And if he wanted to forge a weapon that would be comparable to a famed ancient sword in the future, the level of the materials needed had to be above sacred materials. Even the best materials for forging divine weapons of tribulation did not meet this qualification. Sacred materials were also very rare in the outside world. Every time they appeared, there would be a storm of blood. At this moment, at the 10,000 treasure crag in the outer circle, many geniuses were searching in and out of various underground caves. Killing was also a very common thing. From time to time, there would be wails. Some geniuses had died here, dyeing the 10,000 treasure crag blood red. Among the geniuses searching for sacred materials, there was a tall and slender woman. Her ink-black hair was tied up and fixed with a jade hairpin. She had a snow-white face and no makeup. She looked as if she had walked out of an ink painting, with a cold temperament. If Yiguchin was here, he would definitely remember that this woman's name was Su Jiqing. Previously in the ancient Chaos Wasteland, Yiguchin had met her, Yang Haoye, and the others. However, in contrast to Yang Haoye, Su Jiqing and Yiguchin got along quite well. At this moment, Su Jiqing was also searching for various opportunities in the 10,000 treasure crag. Of course, she was not ambitious. She just wanted to find some supreme-grade materials to forge weapons. As for sacred materials, Su Jiqing did not think about it, nor did she dare to think about it. Su Jiqing was considered outstanding in the Cloud Billow dynasty where she was from. However, when she came to the Holy Emperor world, Su Jiqing realized that there were many geniuses in the Nantian region. She was nothing. Therefore, Su Jiqing did not compete with others. She only wanted to quietly search for her own resources. I wonder if I can find any supreme-grade materials in this cave. Su Jiqing entered another cave and began to search. She indeed found some extremely rare metals. Her beautiful face was filled with a faint smile. At this moment, she suddenly discovered that in the deepest part of the cave, there seemed to be a faint golden light seeping out from the cracks in the stone wall. Su Jiqing raised her eyebrows, puzzled. She stepped forward with the sword in her hand and broke the stone wall. Suddenly, a golden light shone brightly. In the void, golden divine patterns spread out. In the broken stone wall, there was a piece of gold about the size of a human head embedded in it. That piece of gold shone brilliantly, like a solid sun. There were various natural patterns on its surface. It was as if one could hear the chanting of scriptures. It made one want to sit on the ground and comprehend the Tao. Could that be the Daluo Tao metal? Su Jiqing was extremely shocked. She had only seen the Daluo Tao metal in the records of her family by chance. It was an extremely precious sacred material. It was said that it was the carrier of the Tao. That was why there were patterns on its surface. Even if it was just an ordinary weapon, with a little bit of the Daluo Tao metal, it would contain the Tao and become a sacred object. This kind of Daluo Tao metal was extremely rare in the outside world. If news of it spread, even saints would be jealous. Su Jiqing did not expect that the Immortality Saint Emperor who created the Holy Emperor world would have something like the Daluo Tao metal. He had placed it in his own small world and became an opportunity. Her heart pounded. If this item was discovered by outsiders, it would cause a storm of blood in the Holy Emperor world. Without any hesitation, Su Jiqing used her sword to pry out the Daluo Dao metal. Even she could not resist the temptation of the Daluo Dao metal. At this moment, there was movement at the entrance of the cave. Someone was attracted by the golden light. Oh no! Su Jiqing's expression changed. Chapter 12:27. Several dynasty prodigies walked into the cave and saw Su Jiqing putting the Zenith Heaven Dao metal into her origin ring. Is that the Zenith Heaven Dao metal? One of the dynasty prodigies rubbed his eyes in disbelief. It must be. That golden light must be the light emitted by the Zenith Heaven Dao metal. The other dynasty's prodigy was shocked, and his eyes immediately turned red. That was an extremely rare sacred material that could only be chanced upon. They didn't expect that they would encounter it. Without any superfluous words, the few dynasty prodigies charged forward with bloodshot eyes. If it were any other time, they might have modestly declined when they saw a beautiful woman like Su Jiqing. But if it was the Zenith Heaven Dao metal, they wouldn't hesitate to kill Su Jiqing. Su Jiqing gritted her teeth and charged forward with her sword. Her cultivation wasn't weak either. She had reached the second firmament of the divine dwelling realm. The moment he made a move, it caused the few dynasty prodigies to turn pale with fright. They didn't expect Su Jiqing to be so strong despite her weak appearance. Their strength was only at the first firmament of the divine dwelling realm. Poof! Poof! Su Jiqing didn't show any mercy. She knew that if she didn't attack ruthlessly and the matter of the Zenith Heaven Dao metal was leaked, she would be the one to die. Thus, Su Jiqing didn't show any mercy and pierced through the chest of one of the dynasty prodigies. Her other sword pierced through the head of another prodigy. However, at this moment, the last heavily injured prodigy fled towards the entrance of the cave with all his might. Die! Su Jiqing stabbed her sword with determination. Unexpectedly, that dynasty prodigy suddenly took out a hidden weapon. Numerous spirit-destroying flying needles shot out and stopped Su Jiqing. Because she was a step too slow, that dynasty prodigy walked out of the cave. Oh no! Su Jiqing's expression changed, and she stabbed her sword toward that dynasty prodigy's back. She has the Zenith Heaven Dao metal. That prodigy let out a roar that echoed throughout the surroundings. Poof! Immediately after, a sword pierced through that prodigy's chest. But many prodigies in the surroundings had already heard his words. Su Jiqing, who had pulled out her sword, was extremely pale. Go! Those geniuses were like jackals and wolves that had smelled blood. They surrounded Su Jiqing and attacked her without any hesitation. Su Jiqing fought back with all her might, fighting as she fled. Her white dress was stained with specks of blood, like peach blossoms. Blood flowed from the corner of her lips. Despair. Endless despair. There were more than a dozen dynasty prodigies chasing after her. And as the commotion spread, more and more people joined in. After hearing about the Daluo Dao gold, they all went after Su Jiqing with bloodshot eyes. In the holy imperial world, there was no such thing as showing mercy to women. In their eyes, the Daluo Dao metal was more important than anything else. Looking at the group of sky prides whose eyes were bloodshot like ravenous wolves, Su Jiqing felt helpless. It seemed like the only way to survive was to hand over the great firmament Dao metal. Just as Su Jiqing was about to hand over the all-heaven Dao metal, a cold voice resounded. All of you, scram! All the sky prides were stunned, and they couldn't help but stop in their tracks. Someone even shouted angrily, "Who is it?" In the distance, a figure appeared. Su Jiqing's heart skipped a beat. Was someone coming to help her? A figure in a golden robe with a golden saber in his hand appeared. Seeing this person, some of the sky prides were shocked and said, "It's Jin Taiji, the third on the saber roll of the Tyrant Saber dynasty." Fear appeared in many people's eyes. The third on the saber roll of the tyrant saber dynasty was definitely not weak. In the Holy Imperial world, as long as he didn't run into the sky prides of the Overlord forces, he could defeat anyone. Jin Taiji glanced at the crowd and finally fixed his eyes on Su Jiqing. He said coldly, "Hand over the Daluo Dao medal and I can spare your life." Hearing Jin Taiji's words, Su Jiqing's expression changed and she smiled bitterly. Jin Taiji was also there to snatch the Daluo Dao medal. In the cruel Holy Imperial world, it was almost impossible for one to stand up for an injustice. At that moment, another voice was heard. "Jin Taiji, the Daluo Dao medal belongs to us." Two figures, one male and one female, appeared. Their bodies were surrounded by specks of starlight that sprinkled down. It's Prince Xingliu and Princess Xingxuan from the Sky Star Dynasty. Many people were shocked again. Although the Sky Star Dynasty was ranked behind the Tyrant Saber Dynasty, they were backed by the Starry Sword Pavilion. The 4 Star Lords of the Starry Sword Pavilion and Gu Xiaoyang were in the Holy Imperial world. Therefore, unless they had no other choice, no one dared to offend the Sky Star Dynasty. When Jin Taiji saw the situation, he frowned and said, "With your strength, you are not qualified to say such words." "Oh, is that so? What if we want to give the Daluo Dao medal to the 4 Star Lords or young Master Xingyun?" Prince Xingliu sneered. The Celestial Star Dynasty had done this sort of thing many times before. "You." Jin Taiji's expression turned fierce. Looking at Jin Taiji and Prince Xingliu who were treating her like a fish on the chopping block, Su Jiqing felt bitter and helpless. In the Cloud Billow Dynasty, she was a genius and she was extremely dazzling. But in the Holy Imperial world, she was just a weak girl who was at the mercy of others. For some reason, at this moment, Su Jiqing actually thought of the young man she had met in the ancient Chaos Wasteland. That young man was now the famous Jin Kuei of the Sword Dynasty. Even though his spiritual dwelling had been broken, he had achieved amazing results in the martial arts tablet and attracted everyone's attention. What am I thinking? I'm afraid he has forgotten about me. Su Jiqing shook her head and smiled bitterly. She did not look for Yiguchen when she was in the Holy City of Fate because she thought she was not qualified to come into contact with Yiguchen. They were not on the same level anymore. Yiguchen had probably forgotten about her too. At this moment, Prince Xingliu sized up Su Jiqing's appearance, and a wisp of surprise flashed in his eyes. He said, "Miss, if you hand the Daluo Dao gold to me, my Sky Star Dynasty can protect you. Give the Daluo Dao medal to me." Jin Taiji was unwilling to give up such a sacred material. There was a hint of threat in his eyes. Su Jiqing bit her lip so hard that it almost bled. If she gave the Daluo Dao medal to Prince Xingliu, Jin Taiji would not let her go. If she gave it to Jin Taiji, Prince Xingliu and the others would not let her go either. Su Jiqing was stuck in the middle. No matter who she gave it to, she would die in the end. "I asked you to give me the Daluo Dao medal. Did you hear me? Or do you want me to scratch your beautiful face?" Princess Xingliu was a little impatient and she threatened. "Ah, don't be like this. Miss, if you give the Daluo Dao medal to me, not only will I protect you, I can even make you my concubine." Prince Xingliu smiled faintly. Judging from his tone, it was as if it was an honor to be his concubine. "How dare you?" Jin Taiji's expression was cold. "You are going too far." Su Jiqing's face was pale and she bit her lip until it bled. Just as Su Jiqing's heart was about to be drowned in darkness and despair, an indifferent and calm voice sounded. "It's really lively here." Chapter 12:28. The faint voice was not loud, but it seemed to resound in everyone's ears. "Who is it?" Hearing this, Prince Xinglu, Jin Taiji, and the others all looked around. However, when Su Jiqing heard this voice, her heart suddenly throbbed. She was no stranger to this voice. In fact, she had always remembered it in her heart and could not forget it. A figure came from afar, stepping on the air with his hands behind his back. His black hair fluttered, and a ghost mask covered his face, but it could not hide his cold aura. It's Jiankui from the Sword Dynasty. Some of the Sky Prides saw the figure, and their eyes widened. They took a deep breath, and their eyes were filled with shock. Regardless of whether Yiguchen's spiritual dwelling was destroyed or not, in their eyes, Jiankui from the Sword Dynasty was a supreme existence. He was far from what ordinary dynasty Sky Prides like them could compare to. Jin Taiji's face froze, but there was still a hint of mockery in his eyes. In his opinion, even if Yiguchen's physical body was extraordinary, the fact that he could not use his true energy was a huge disadvantage. He did not believe that he could not suppress Yiguchen with his true energy. Prince Xing Lu and Princess Xing Xian's faces also changed. Their strength was not as strong as Jin Taiji, but when they thought of the backing behind them, the two of them calmed down, and their faces regained their composure. As for Su Jiqing, from the moment Yiguchen appeared, her eyes were fixed on him. Although they had been together for a period of time in the ancient Chaos Wasteland, Su Jiqing still felt that it was unreal when she looked at the figure wearing the ghost mask and walking on the air. This feeling was as if the person beside her had suddenly become high and mighty, unreachable. Is he here to help me? Does he still remember me? Su Jiqing felt a little uneasy. Compared to being hunted down, she was actually more afraid that Yiguchen would forget her. At this moment, under the ghost mask, Yiguchen's gaze fell on Su Jiqing, who was surrounded by a group of people. Yiguchen's eyes darkened when he saw the classic beauty in white with bloodstains all over her body. Naturally, he still remembered Su Jiqing. Although their friendship wasn't deep, there was still some relationship between them. For the sake of this relationship, Yiguchen would not turn a blind eye to it. Ha! What did this woman obtain that is worth all of you making such a big fuss over? Yiguchen's tone was calm and his aura was deep and serene. No one replied. Naturally, they didn't want to reveal anything about the Zenith Heaven Dao medal. Instead, it was Su Jiqing who said with a hint of nervousness, "It's the Daluo Dao medal. I accidentally obtained a piece of Daluo Dao metal and accidentally leaked the news." Oh. Yiguchen's gaze deepened. It was no wonder that this group of people wanted to kill Su Jiqing like crazy. Even Yiguchen was tempted by such a rare and sacred material like the Daluo Dao metal. Of course, if it was something that belonged to Su Jiqing, he wouldn't snatch it away. Jiankui, this is our prey. You're one step too late. You'd better go somewhere else, Prince Xing Lu said coldly. He thought that Yiguchen also wanted to join in the fight for the Daluo Dao medal. Why? Can't I join in? Yiguchen smiled faintly. Jin Taiji frowned and said impatiently, "Do you think you're qualified to fight for the Daluo Dao medal?" If it wasn't for Yiguchen's extraordinary physical strength, Jin Taiji wouldn't even waste his breath on him. He would have killed Yiguchen directly. Then do you think you're qualified to say such words in front of me? Yiguchen's aura instantly became cold. Courting death. Just a cripple whose divine abodes were crippled. You really think you're somebody? Jin Taiji held a golden long saber in his hand. His footsteps flashed, and he slashed a saber at Yiguchen. The golden long saber swallowed and spat out a blazing saber light, slashing at Yiguchen's head like crushing dead leaves. When Yiguchen saw the situation, the corners of his lips curled into a hint of coldness. His footsteps suddenly flashed. Lightning twined around his legs. His figure instantly disappeared on the spot. Jin Taiji's saber slashed empty air. Where is he? Jin Taiji was somewhat confused for a moment. Yiguchen's speed was too fast, making him unable to react in time. Behind. Someone cried out in surprise. As soon as Jin Taiji turned around, he saw a fist shining with golden light coming toward his face. Jin Taiji hurriedly held the golden long saber horizontally in front of him. Boom! With one blow, Jin Taiji felt as if he had been crushed by an immemorial divine elephant. A sudden burst of energy directly blasted the golden long saber away. The energy passed through his chest, directly shattering all his ribs and internal organs. Jin Taiji suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with his shattered internal organs. His eyes bulged, and he looked at the indifferent ghost face in front of him in disbelief. Your cultivation. Jin Taiji's face was distorted, and his face was crimson red. Who told you that you can't kill without genuine energy? Yiguchin's tone was as cold as a god's. Just now, he had used the ancient god power to burst out a monstrous force. It might not be enough to deal with those top geniuses, but it was more than enough to deal with geniuses like Jin Taiji. Puff! Jin Taiji spat out another mouthful of blood. Then, with a loud bang, he fell to the ground and no longer breathed. With one punch, he had killed the third-ranked genius of the tyrannical Saber dynasty. Everyone present felt a chill in their hearts. They looked at Yiguchin as if they were looking at a monster. Prince Xing Lu and Princess Xing Xian also felt a chill spread from their bodies. Their faces were no longer as calm as before. Jinkue. Your cultivation. Prince Xing Lu's tone was extremely unnatural. To put it bluntly, killing you is like slaughtering dogs. Yiguchin said indifferently. No, you can't kill us. Crown Prince Xingyang won't let you go. Moreover, we have Starry Sword Pavilion behind us. You know Starry Sword Pavilion. Even the Sword Dynasty behind you can't afford to offend them, Prince Xing Lu said with fear. His cultivation was not even as good as Jin Taiji. In Yiguchin's eyes, he was no different from an ant. Therefore, he used Starry Sword Pavilion's tiger skin. He did not know that he had stepped on Yiguchin's minefield. Starry Sword Pavilion? Yiguchin tilted his head slightly and said in a strange tone. Yes, that's right. We have Starry Sword Pavilion behind us. The 4 young Star Lords and Sir Gu Xiaoyang are in Holy Imperial World. If you know what's good for you, leave now. I can pretend that nothing happened. Prince Xing Lu saw the situation and was overjoyed. Did you hear that? If you know what's good for you, get lost. Princess Xing Xian also became fearless. Ha! Starry Sword Pavilion, what a Starry Sword Pavilion! Yiguchin suddenly sneered. For some reason, Prince Xing Lu and Princess Xing Xian's hearts skipped a beat when they heard the laughter. They had a bad feeling. Don't worry. Go to hell first. The people of Starry Sword Pavilion will accompany you later. As Yiguchin's voice fell, ancient god power surged out. He threw a punch and the air billowed as if it could break the sky. Chapter 1229. Horrifying fist wind wreaked havoc between heaven and earth, akin to stirring up a storm. The golden fist light illuminated the sky. Yiguchin's fist directly slammed toward Prince Stargem, clean and tidy, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. Jinkue, to dare make a move against us, you're seeking your own destruction. Prince Stargem was frightened until his soul left his body, emitting a shrill howl. He also made moves to resist, but how could he deal with Yiguchin? Bang! Following a loud bang, Prince Stargem's entire body directly exploded, splattering blood flowers. By the side, Princess Stargem was splattered with blood all over. Her expression was lifeless, as if she had seen a ghost, only reacting after a while, emitting an ear-piercing shriek. Next is you. Yiguchin's expression was incomparably cold, not showing any mercy just because Princess Stargem was a woman. Back in the holy city of creation, Yiguchin already made up his mind in his heart. The Heavenly Star Dynasty's people, killing one on sight, would not show the slightest bit of mercy. Jinkue, you're crazy. To dare kill my Heavenly Star Dynasty's people, Crown Prince Stargem won't let you off. The 4 young Star Lords and young Master Nebula won't let you off either. Princess Stargem was scared out of her wits, her complexion as pale as paper, fleeing crazily while screaming shrilly. She took out a jade slip, crushed it, and transmitted a message out. Yiguchin smiled coldly and said, I'll wait for them to come and kill me. Immediately after, a punch slammed down. Princess Stargem's delicate body immediately split into pieces, exploding in the void. The entire noisy myriad treasure crag fell deathly silent. Only the blood mist scattered in the wind. Gulp, no idea which dynasty's heaven's pride present let out the sound of swallowing saliva. Everyone present felt that there was cold sweat pouring down their backs, a surge of cold air welling up their throats. The impression that Yi Gu-chen gave them was that he was decisive, ruthless, and had hidden his strength. If say in the beginning, they still somewhat underestimated this sword dynasty's Jinkui. Then now, if there was still anyone who dared to underestimate him, that person would really be a fool. Looks like even if the divine abodes are crippled, Jinkui is still Jinkui, combat power astonishing. Some heaven's prides had lingering fear in their hearts. Yi Gu-chen did not say a word, his gaze looking around. The hairs on the bodies of those geniuses instantly stood on end, and they fled without saying a word, utterly not daring to stay in the slightest. After an instant, there was only Su Jiqing and Yi Gu-chen, two people. Yi Gu-chen landed in front of Su Jiqing. Su Jiqing's jade-like face revealed a hint of uneasiness. Yi Gu-chen's Yi Ye's face was gods to Stargem to Stargems to princesses, long time no see, Miss Su, Yi Gu-chen said with a faint smile. Yes, Dugu. Lord Jinkui. Thank you for your help. Su Jiqing bowed in a reserved manner. There's no need to be so formal. Jinkui is just a title. Yi Gu-chen shook his head slightly. Young Master Dugu, if you did not appear, I would have been in danger today. Su Jiqing said, slightly relieved. Take this. Yi Gu-chen took out a healing elixir and gave it to Su Jiqing. Su Jiqing's injuries were also recovering. The news of you obtaining the Daluo Dao medal has spread. It will definitely attract the attention of many. You must be careful. Yi Gu-chen warned. He had other things to do in the sacred imperial world and could not take care of Su Jiqing all the time. Moreover, their relationship was not that good. It was already good enough that Yi Gu-chen was willing to lend a helping hand. Su Jiqing heard this and bit her lips. Then, she swiped her origin ring and took out the Daluo Dao medal. You. Yi Gu-chen said. If it were not for young Master Dugu, I would have lost my life. This Daluo Dao medal is not safe with me. Instead, it may endanger my life. It is better to give it to young Master Dugu as a reward. Su Jiqing said with a serious expression. I did not save you for the Daluo Dao medal. Yi Gu-chen frowned slightly. Although he also wanted the Daluo Dao medal, he did not want to take it from Su Jiqing. Jiqing is willing to give it to young Master Dugu. Please do not reject it. Su Jiqing said firmly. Although the Daluo Dao medal was precious, it was not worth mentioning compared to her life. All right then. It would be impolite of me to refuse. Yi Gu-chen was not a wishy-washy person. Since Su Jiqing was willing to give it to him, he accepted it. However, I do not want to take advantage of you. I will help you search for materials around the 1,000 treasure cliff, Yi Gu-chen said. Thank you very much, young Master Dugu. Su Jiqing smiled like a blooming white lotus. Then, Yi Gu-chen helped Su Jiqing search for materials in the 1,000 treasure cliff. He also collected some supreme-grade materials along the way. On the other side, Crown Prince Xingyang was also looking for opportunities. At a certain moment, he felt something and took out a jade slip. After reading the information in it, his face suddenly darkened. Sword Dynasty, Jinkui. I have not taken the initiative to attack you, but you have already provoked me. Crown Prince Xingyang's eyes were cold. However, he was also cautious. Yi Gu-chen's powerful physical strength made him wary and did not seek revenge immediately. Jinkui, just you wait. Crown Prince Xingyang's heart was cold. In another forest valley in the outer region, Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the other Swallow Cloud Dynasty geniuses were searching for opportunities. However, they did not realize that a genius of a dynasty was following them in secret. The dynasty genius's eyes were strange. He then took out a jade slip and sent a message. At the same time, a group of princes and princesses of the Great Qian dynasty received the message. Someone had found traces of the Swallow Cloud dynasty. Great, we finally found the Swallow Cloud dynasty people. The first prince sneered. In this way, our plan will have room to play out. We will force the people of the Yenyun dynasty into a valley, and then lure the sword leader to rescue them. The second princess curled her lips, as if victory was already in her grasp. However, will Jinkui fall for it? He is not stupid. The third prince, Yang Haoyu, hesitated. He had interacted with Yiguchen before and knew that Yiguchen was not that stupid. The first prince smiled. Don't worry. Since Jinkui killed 8th brother for Yan Wushuang, it means that he is close to Yan Wushuang. When the time comes, he will definitely rescue them. Don't you think so? As the first prince spoke, he suddenly looked to the other side. There stood a beautiful girl in a fiery red robe. She was beautiful and had an extraordinary aura. There was a flame phoenix mark between her eyebrows. It was Princess Feng Shi of the Fengni dynasty. Isn't this a little too despicable? Princess Feng Shi was hesitant. After all, she had interacted with Yan Wushuang in the past. Although they were enemies in the beginning, they gradually became less hostile. Now, she wanted to join forces with the Great Qian dynasty to use such a despicable method. To be honest, Princess Feng Shi was not too willing. Oh, haven't the Great Qian dynasty and your Fengni dynasty suffered enough humiliation? I believe Empress Fengni must have warned you to kill Jinkui in the sacred imperial world, right? The first prince said. This. Princess Feng Shi was speechless and nodded slightly. That's good. Don't worry, I have already sent a message. When the time comes, not only us, but young Master Chen will also come. After all, Jinkui also made young Master Chen unhappy. The first prince smiled proudly. What, Qin Qingshao will also come? Princess Feng Shi's expression changed. In this way, Jinkui would not be able to escape. Chapter 1230. Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the other prodigies of the Swallow Cloud dynasty were searching for fortuitous opportunities in the forest. Yan Wushuang didn't choose the places where the competition for fortuitous opportunities was intense because her life was more important than fortuitous opportunities. Wushuang, it seems like we can only search for fortuitous opportunities in these places. As for the inner circle, it's not a place we can set foot in. Ji Ling smiled bitterly. Even though she was unwilling, it was the truth. The inner circle was a stage for the prodigies of the overlord forces to compete with the prodigies of the top dynasties. Prodigies of their level could only search for fortuitous opportunities in places where the competition wasn't intense. Yan Wushuang nodded. At this moment, a figure suddenly flashed in the distance. Powerful auras appeared one after another. It was a group of people dressed in luxurious clothes. Wushuang, it's the Great Gan dynasty. Ji Ling's expression changed when she saw the figure in the distance. Outside the sacred imperial world, the Great Gan dynasty didn't dare to do anything to them because of the Sword dynasty. But now that they were in the sacred imperial world, the other forces couldn't interfere. It was useless to rely on background. Let's go. Yan Wushuang bit her lips and led the people of the Swallow Cloud dynasty forward. Ha, Princess Wushuang, why are you running? Behind them, the first prince of the Great Gan dynasty and the others smiled with mockery in their eyes. They looked at Yan Wushuang and the others as if they were a group of prey. However, they weren't in a hurry to attack. Instead, they enjoyed the chase. This way. Yan Wushuang's delicate face was filled with determination. At this moment, another group of people appeared in another direction. The leader was a woman in a fiery red robe. It was Princess Feng Shi. Princess Feng Shi, even you. Yan Wushuang was stunned. I'm sorry, I can't disobey my mother's orders. Princess Fengxi bit her lips. She knew that her mother, Empress Fengni, was most likely watching outside the sacred imperial world. After all, she was the daughter of Empress Fengni and had to listen to her orders. Yan Wushuang didn't say anything. Since that direction was blocked by Princess Fengxi, she could only choose to enter the valley ahead. Meanwhile, Ji Ling hesitated and said, the Darqian dynasty and the others don't seem to be in a hurry to deal with us, and they seem to want to force us into a corner. Yan Wushuang also sensed this and said, I am also aware of this. However, we are currently unable to fight against the people from the two empires. Yan Wushuang was not a timid woman. In fact, she was very strong. In the past, in the Sword Sex Pagoda Forest, she was a woman who was as arrogant as a man. Yan Wushuang was not only responsible for herself, but also Ji Ling and the other geniuses of the Swallow Cloud dynasty. Soon, they were forced into the valley. The crown prince of the great Qian dynasty placed his hands behind his back and scanned Yan Wushuang from head to toe. His gaze lingered on her slender and smooth legs for a while before he clicked his tongue and said, no wonder eighth brother is so infatuated with you. Even Jiankui of the Sword dynasty is willing to fight for you. Seems like you should serve that Jiankui well. Shut up. Yan Wushuang's pretty face turned ashen. The crown prince's filthy words were unpleasant to the ears. Oh, am I wrong? Why would Jiankui of the Sword dynasty help your Swallow Cloud dynasty for no reason? The crown prince smiled faintly. That's right. If you want to sell your body, so be it. You think you are so noble. I hate women like you the most. The second princess's tone was sharp and unkind. Her face was full of disdain as if Yan Wushuang was an extremely filthy woman. All of you, shut up. Yan Wushuang was silent, but Ji Ling and the others could not listen to it anymore. Such deliberate insults were infuriating. Oh, don't worry, we won't kill you directly. After all, we still need you to lure that Jiankui over. The crown prince said confidently. Chen Qingshao had also heard the news and would rush over at the critical moment. Everyone, attack, but don't take their lives. As for who can take Jiankui's life, we will see when the time comes. The crown prince sneered. Boom! Without any superfluous words, the battle erupted. However, it should be called a one-sided crushing. Yan Wushuang and Ji Ling were not weak, but the people of the great Qian dynasty were not to be trifled with either. Princess Fengxi, do you want to reap without sowing? The crown prince glanced at Princess Fengxi, who had yet to make a move. Princess Fengxi gritted her teeth and struck out with her palm. Sorry, she said in her heart. For a moment, Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the others were injured. Blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. At the same time, the news of the Swallow Cloud dynasty being besieged in the valley was spread by the first prince and the others. Those who were observant knew that this might be a trap set up by the great Qian dynasty and Fengni dynasty for revenge. Outside the sacred emperor world. In the void, a light screen appeared, reflecting the scene of the sacred emperor world. At this moment, the scene of Yan Wushuang and the others being trapped and struggling to hold on appeared on one of the light screens. The Grand Emperor of the Swallow Cloud dynasty, Yan He, Yan Chang'e, and the others had arrived. When they saw the scene on the light screen, they could not suppress their anger. You are too despicable. Yan He's old eyes were filled with anger as he looked at Emperor Qian, Empress Fengni, and the others. They had personally led the various dynasties to participate in the battle of the sacred emperor world. Ha! Didn't the Swallow Cloud dynasty scheme against me like this before? Emperor Qian's face was cold. If it weren't for the opening of the sacred emperor world, he would not have been able to take revenge on the Swallow Cloud dynasty. Empress Fengni looked at Yan Chang'e indifferently and said coldly, you will see your daughter die in the sacred emperor world. I wonder how you will feel then. You are too much. Yan Chang'e's expression froze. Although they were filled with anger, there was nothing they could do. It was normal for people to die in the sacred emperor world. Seeing Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the others getting more and more injured, Yan Chang'e felt like his heart was being stabbed by needles. In the sacred emperor world, Yi Guqin and Su Jiqing were collecting resources at the 10,000 treasures cliff. Yi Guqin did not hear about Yan Wushuang being besieged by the great Qian dynasty. On the other side, Dugu Qiuma was the first to receive the news. As for Princess Luo Ho, she and Dugu Qiuma were teleported to different places when they entered the sacred emperor world. The moment Dugu Qiuma received the news, Yi Guqin naturally knew as well. His gaze immediately sharpened. What's wrong? Su Jiqing was a little confused when she saw Yi Guqin's sudden outburst of killing intent. Nothing. Yi Guqin calmed down, but his eyes were cold. Great Qian dynasty, you are digging your own grave. Yi Guqin's expression was cold. However, he did not move. Instead, he asked Dugu Qiuma, the god of slaughter, to take action. Qiuma, you are close to Shuang, and the others. Go and save them. I don't need to tell you what to do I? Yi Guqin said in his mind. Of course, on the other side, Dugu Qiuma's eyes shone with a bloodthirsty light as a cruel smile appeared on his face. He was 100 times more ruthless than Yi Guqin. Dying in his hands was definitely more tragic than dying in Yi Guqin's hands. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for messing with someone you shouldn't have. Dugu Qiuma took a step forward and lightning appeared in the void. He also used the first level of the divine movement secret skill, chasing lightning, and rushed to the valley. Chapter 1231. At that moment, there were waves of air in the valley. The princes and princesses of the great Qian dynasty were toying with the people of the Swallow Cloud dynasty as if they were prey in a cage. Yan Wushuang's armor was torn in many places and she was coughing up blood. She was severely injured. However, her snow-white and flawless face was still filled with determination. Over the past year, Yan Wushuang had been hurt from time to time, but it had made her even more determined. Ji Ling and the others were also severely injured. Blood flowed from the corners of their mouths as they stared coldly at the people of the great Qian dynasty. Princess Phoenix Dawn also made a move, but it was just a symbolic move. The other prodigies of the Phoenix Nye dynasty did not hold back at all. The news has been out for so long. It seems that Jin Kuei of the Sword dynasty is either scared or doesn't take you seriously at all. The first prince shook his head in disappointment. We never thought of asking others to help us. Yan Wushuang said coldly. Indeed, the Swallow Cloud dynasty was not very powerful. Yan Wushuang and the others were definitely not the top prodigies in the sacred emperor world. But so what? Yan Wushuang had never thought of relying on the Sword dynasty, nor did she think of relying on Jin Kuei or Mu Xingzu. If she had asked for help, Yan Wushuang could have sent a message to Mu Xingzu. But she did not. That was because Yan Wushuang was stubborn and strong. She would not ask for help. Apart from Yi Guqin, who had disappeared for a long time, Yan Wushuang had never truly relied on anyone else. Ha! I do admire you. If you had not been tainted by Jin Kuei, I would have taken you into my harem. The first prince's eyes were filled with admiration. He had seen his fair share of charming and seductive women. However, a strong and independent girl like Yan Wushuang was very rare. In your dreams. Ji Ling's willowy eyebrows shot up, her eyes filled with rage. The first prince was so shameless. Not only did he accuse Yan Wushuang of being indecent, he even wanted to take her into his harem. If Ji Ling had the ability, he would definitely tear the crown prince apart with his bare hands. At this moment, the commotion in the valley attracted the attention of many skyprides. In addition to the news that had spread, there were also some geniuses who passed by to watch the show. It seems that the Sword dynasty's Jin Kuei is really scared and doesn't dare to come. That's not necessarily true. Although Jin Kuei's divine dwellings have been destroyed, his physical body is unparalleled. By the way, I seem to have heard the news. The sword chief made a strong move at the 10,000 treasure cliff and killed Jin Taiji, who ranked third on the saber ranking, as well as 2 princes and princesses of the Heavenly Star dynasty. Is that true? Many geniuses were whispering outside the valley. However, all of a sudden, all of the geniuses felt an extremely strong killing intent coming from afar. Those prodigies turned their heads and looked over. Suddenly, he saw a flash of lightning in the distant horizon. It was flying towards the valley at lightning speed. Who is that? It's so fast. Who has such ability? Many of the geniuses exclaimed when they saw the lightning shadow. Furthermore, it was obvious that the lightning shadow was coming for the valley. Could it be Chen Qingxiao, who is rumored to be coming to kill Jiankui? Some of the geniuses wondered. Finally, the figure approached and directly arrived outside the valley. When the crowd saw that silhouette, an emotion called terror appeared on their faces. Their scalps went numb and they took a deep breath. They did not expect this person to come at all. The person who came was a slender and vigorous young man in black. His face was evil and handsome, and he exuded a cold aura. His white hair fluttered in the void. His left eye was dark and deep, while his right eye was dark and mysterious. He was like a demon king who had arrived at this place. It was Dugu Qiuma. It's Dugu Qiuma, who ranked first on the blood ranking of the Mo Luo dynasty. Many people took a deep breath and involuntarily retreated out of fear. This was because Dugu Qiuma's reputation was too well known. Previously, when he was still in the Mo Luo dynasty, his name had spread far and wide. He was a true white-haired killing god. Of course, what made Dugu Qiuma even more famous was the test in the sacred city of fortune. The martial tablet's combat strength was as high as 92. The sacred lotus had also reached a heaven-defying 49 leaves, which was on par with the clear sky true dragon. With such talent, who wouldn't be afraid of him? Who wouldn't fear him? Who wouldn't be respectful? Dugu Qiuma glanced coldly at the people outside the valley. The prodigies hurriedly retreated, indicating that it had nothing to do with them. Dugu Qiuma could not be bothered with them. He directly entered the valley in a flash. The prodigies outside the valley paid close attention and looked over. Oh my God, why is this demon king here? He has nothing to do with this. Many people were puzzled. Some did not know what was going on. At this moment, in the valley, Yan Wushuang and the others were covered in blood. They were like lamps that had run out of oil. Is he not here yet? The first prince frowned. Brother, why don't we just kill these people? That Jiankui will naturally come after us if he's angry, the second princess said viciously. For some reason, she just could not stand Yan Wushuang. Why could Yan Wushuang be favored by the Sword Dynasty's Jiankui? Why couldn't she? Perhaps this was the jealousy between women. Therefore, the second princess wanted to kill Yan Wushuang with her own hands. Sigh, it seems like that's the only way. The first prince sighed and looked at Yan Wushuang. He felt that it was a pity. On the other hand, Princess Fengshi's beautiful eyes revealed a hint of struggle. However, at this moment, an aura suddenly spread from behind, causing the first prince and the others to change their expressions slightly. The first prince did not even turn his head. He said coldly, "The great Qian dynasty is here to do something. Get lost." His attitude was domineering. However, a low voice that sounded like a fiend celestial from the netherworld rang out. "Great Qian dynasty? Who do you think you are? How dare you?" The first prince and the others suddenly turned around. However, when they saw the cold figure standing in the void with white hair fluttering in the wind, the first prince's expression changed. The second princess's face also turned pale. The third prince, Yang Haoyu, was also stunned. Molo dynasty. Dugu Qiuma. The first prince's voice trembled as he spoke in disbelief. He did not expect that the person who appeared was Dugu Qiuma. Besides, what was he doing here? the people of the great Qian dynasty were puzzled. However, the others present, such as Princess Feng Shi, Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the others, when they looked at Dugu Qiuma's face, they were all stunned. It was too similar, although there were still some differences in the corners of his eyes and brows, he was at least 70% similar to that figure. Yan Wushuang's body trembled slightly. Although she had heard of Dugu Qiuma before, she had never seen him before. This was the first time she had seen him. If it weren't for the fact that Dugu Qiuma's temperament was too evil and cold, she would even mistake him for Yi Guqin. Why does he look so much like junior brother Yi? Ji Ling said softly as her eyes widened and she took a deep breath. No, it's impossible. Yan Wushuang shook her head. In her heart, Yi Guqin's temperament was deep, calm, and open-minded. It was definitely not as evil and cold as it was now. It carried a savage and bloodthirsty aura. Besides, Yi Guqin had taken the 9 deaths no regrets pill. Even though Yan Wushuang had always been unwilling to believe that he was already dead, she still knew that the probability of Yi Guqin being alive was almost zero. Chapter 1232. At this moment, the elites of the Great Qian dynasty and the Phoenix Nye dynasty were all pale and terrified. They were puzzled. What was Dugu Qiuma doing here? He had nothing to do with this matter. Although the crown prince and the others were a little angry that Dugu had come to intervene, they were still afraid of him. However, due to Dugu Qiuma's demonic might, he still cupped his hands and said, "I didn't know that brother Dugu had arrived. My words were a little inappropriate, I hope you can forgive me." The crown prince sounded like he was having a hard time saying that. He was the prince of a kingdom and yet, he was groveling like a servant. It would be fine if he was facing an elite of an overlord force, but Dugu was also an elite of a dynasty. However, at the thought of the rumors about Dugu, he still gave in. After all, Dugu's strength was already on par with the elites of the overlord forces. "Are you worthy to call me brother?" Dugu Qiuma's tone was incomparably cold. The crown prince's face was even more sullen. Outside the valley, the elites who were watching were dumbfounded. It seems that Dugu doesn't want to give the Great Qian dynasty any face at all. Dugu looked at Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the others. Yan Wushuang and Ji Ling's faces were filled with confusion, bewilderment, and a hint of fear. After all, they didn't know what Dugu's stance was or what his agenda was. After taking a deep breath and suppressing the anger in his heart, the crown prince forced a smile that was uglier than crying. "Young Master Dugu, what are you here for? What's the matter?" Dugu turned his head slightly. When he saw the bloodstains on Yan Wushuang and Ji Ling's bodies, anger surged in his heart. To be honest, it was Dugu's first time meeting Yan Wushuang and Ji Ling. But don't forget that the origin of his sea of consciousness was separated from Yi Guqin's brain. Therefore, Dugu wanted to empathize with the memories of the past. There was a strange glint in Ji Ling's eyes. She had noticed that there was a trace of gentleness in the depths of the young man's eyes as he looked at them. Could it be that he's interested in Shuang, or? Ji Ling was secretly on guard. "If there is nothing else, I hope that young Master Dugu can leave for now," the first prince said patiently. Hui. My hands are suddenly itching to kill someone." Dugu Qiuma's lips curled into a cold smirk as he let out a killing intent that seemed as though it could freeze the entire void. "What?" When the first prince and the others heard this, their faces paled. That piercingly cold killing intent caused a chill to run down their spines. The first prince said with a grim expression, "Dugu Qiuma, there doesn't seem to be any enmity between us, right? So what? You accidentally trampled a group of ants to death. Could it be that you have a grudge against ants?" Dugu asked. Blood-colored azure true chi swirled around his body as he prepared to strike. He did not expect that after he mentioned Chen Qingshao, not only did he not make Dugu Qiuma wary, but he also seemed to have stirred up a hornet's nest and made him even angrier. "Chen Qingshao, Who does he think he is? Don't use the name of an overlord-level faction to intimidate me. What can a dragon phoenix role elite do to me? Duguchyoma's white hair danced wildly like a fiend celestial. Blood splattered everywhere and it was a tragic scene. So what if he was an overlord-level elite? So what if he was a dragon phoenix role elite? If he dared to provoke Duguchyoma, he would suppress and kill them all. Looking at the domineering Duguchyoma, the elites watching the battle outside the valley were speechless. I thought that Jinkue of the Sword Dynasty was already arrogant enough, but I didn't expect Duguchyoma to be the same. In fact, he's even more arrogant. What's the use of being arrogant? That Qin Qingxiao should be here soon. He won't sit back and watch his followers get killed. Many elites were discussing. The valley was already filled with blood. Duguchyoma's attacks were as fast as lightning. He could casually kill these prodigies. Pfft! Duguchyoma smashed the head of Yang Haoyu, the third prince of the great Qian dynasty, with red and white matter splattering everywhere. Yan Wushuang and the others were the only ones who were safe in the entire valley. Only the crown prince and the second princess of the great Qian dynasty were left. However, they were also covered in injuries and had no chance of escaping at all. As for the Fengni dynasty, Duguchyoma had yet to make a move, so there were no casualties. However, Princess Fengxi was still anxious because she knew that since Duguchyoma had attacked the great Qian dynasty, he naturally wouldn't let the Fengni dynasty off. Don't come over. The crown prince and the second princess were both terrified. The fear of death was driving them crazy. However, at this moment, a green light appeared in the sky. A cold voice sounded at the same time. Who gave you the guts to attack my follower? Chapter 1233. His voice was not loud, but it carried the authority of a superior. When the first prince and the second princess heard that, their hearts, which were on the verge of despair, suddenly lit up. Their gloomy faces also seemed to be glowing with vitality and radiance again. It's young Master Qin Qingxiao. Their bodies trembled, and they were excited. This feeling of coming back from the jaws of death made them feel like they had risen from hell to heaven in an instant. Duguchyama's eyes revealed a strange look, but his expression was still calm. He was not in a hurry to kill the first prince and the second princess now. This was because he wanted to see their despair after their hope was shattered again. Outside the valley, there was also an uproar. All the prodigies looked over. Qin Qingxiao's green robe fluttered, and he looked like a dragon or a phoenix. He was standing on a sharp sword that was emitting green light. It was a divine weapon that was born with him. It was called the Qingxiao sword. It could cut through gold and jade, and cut through iron like mud. It was always successful. Qin Qingxiao's name also came from this sword. At this moment, Qin Qingxiao was standing on the flying sword. He was like an ancient sword immortal, and he had an extraordinary temperament. However, his expression was very cold at this moment, and his gaze fell on the valley. Looking at the bloody corpses on the ground, Qin Qingxiao frowned. He was not feeling pity for his dead followers, but he was a little angry that Duguchyoma dared to kill his followers. When the first prince and the second princess saw this, they hurriedly knelt on the ground and cried, "Young Master Qin Qingxiao, our plan has been completely ruined by Duguchyoma. Our people have also been killed. Young Master, please kill this bastard." All their hopes were now placed on Qin Qingxiao. They hoped that Qin Qingxiao could kill Duguchyoma. Qin Qingxiao's eyes dimmed, and his gaze fell on Duguchyoma. If it were another dynasty's prodigy, Qin Qingxiao would have killed him with a sword without saying a word. However, Duguchyoma was different. He had reached the 92nd level of the martial steel, and his sacred lotus had 49 leaves. His talent was on par with Dihaoyan's. Setting aside his background, in terms of aptitude and strength, Duguchyoma was already on par with the prodigies of the overlord forces. In fact, he might even be better. Therefore, Qin Qingxiao did not attack immediately. Instead, he said with a cold face, Dugu-chuma, you and I have no grievances in the past. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? Hearing Qin Qingxiao's words, Dugu-chuma didn't say anything. The eldest prince and the second princess were stunned. What was going on? Shouldn't Qin Qingxiao directly kill Dugu and Qiu Mo? The sky prides outside the valley were in a heated discussion. However, they finally understood the situation. Qin Qingxiao must have been a little afraid of Dugu. Otherwise, his attitude wouldn't be like this. No grievances in the past, no enmity in the present. Dugu-chuma only sneered. Qin Qingxiao did not have a grudge against him, but Ye Guqin did. Having a grudge against Ye Guqin was equivalent to having a grudge against him. I, Dugu-chuma, don't need to explain my actions to you. Dugu-chuma's words were cold, arrogant, domineering, and insufferably arrogant. An awe-inspiring murderous aura spread out along with his words, shocking everyone present. Dugu-chuma was the first person who dared to speak to an overlord-level force, a sky pride on the Dragon Phoenix list, like this. Even Qin Qingxiao himself was taken aback. Then, his face turned ashen, and the aura of the 6th level of the Divine Dwelling Realm burst out. Dugu-chuma, you really don't want face. Do you think you can be so arrogant just because you performed well in the sacred lotus of the martial tablet? The test doesn't completely represent your true strength. Qin Qingxiao's eyes were filled with murderous intent, and true qi flowed around his body. As a sky pride on the Dragon Phoenix list, he naturally had his own pride. At this moment, if he still didn't make a move, he would lose face as a sky pride on the Dragon Phoenix list. Kill. Qin Qingxiao didn't say anything else. He had nothing else to say. He used his strongest move right from the start. The Qingxiao sword under his feet soared into the sky as if it carried the power of the 9 heavens and the wind and clouds. It shot toward Dugu-chuma. Great! Seeing Qin Qingxiao make a move, the first prince and the second princess were excited. At the same time, they looked at Dugu-chuma with joy. Dugu-chuma, provoking us is the biggest mistake you made. They believed that with Qin Qingxiao making a move, they would definitely be able to kill Dugu-chuma without any suspense. Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the others' hearts were in their mouths. Although they were also a little wary of Dugu-chuma, who was known as the god of slaughter. But in comparison, if they fell into the hands of Qin Qingxiao, the first prince, and the others, their outcome would be even more tragic. Good. Dugu-chuma wasn't afraid at all. He also wanted to use Qin Qingxiao as a whetstone to measure his true combat strength with the strength of a sky pride on the Dragon Phoenix list. Dugu-chuma raised his hand, and a black light broke through the air. It was the God Devourer sword wrapped in black crystals. He held the God Devourer sword in his hand and clashed with the green firmament sword. In an instant, the sound of metal clashing burst forth. It was like the sound of the heavenly realm's weapon refinement room. The ear-piercing sound waves shattered everyone's eardrums. The green firmament sword flew back, its body trembling slightly. Huh! Qin Qingxiao was slightly stunned. This green firmament sword was his companion divine weapon and was extremely powerful. Even compared to a 10th tribulation divine weapon, it had an absolute advantage. Qin Qingxiao even believed that his companion divine weapon was comparable to a 100 tribulation divine weapon that could withstand more than 100 lightning tribulations. In the past battles, Qin Qingxiao had never been afraid of anyone when divine weapons clashed. But now, after clashing with the black crystal sword, Qin Qingxiao seemed to be able to hear the green firmament sword trembling in pain. How is this possible? Qin Qingxiao's face darkened. He was unwilling to believe it. How could a mere sky pride of a dynasty be qualified to own a 100 tribulation divine weapon? Vast sea sword technique. Qin Qingxiao roared and displayed the Imperial Heavenly Sword Pavilion's Emperor-class martial arts. In an instant, the green firmament sword emitted a green glow. Rays of green sword light appeared like a green wave of sword qi. It floated in the void and swept toward Dugu-chuma. Seeing this, Duguchilma also released the aura of the third heaven of the Abhijna realm. But because he had a special unblemished Azura divine dwelling, in terms of the density of his chi, he was not much weaker than Qinqing, who was at the sixth heaven of the divine dwelling realm. Duguchilma infused his Azura chi into the God Devourer sword and directly displayed the demon 13 swords. The first sword, Blood Kill, broke through the green wave of sword chi. The second sword, Death Shadow, split the sword chi. Then the third, fourth, and fifth swords were all unleashed. The entire green wave of sword chi was directly split into two in front of everyone's shocked eyes. He broke Qinqingxiao's sword move so easily. Seeing this scene, everyone inside and outside the valley was shocked. The first prince and the second princess saw this scene and their hearts skipped a beat. As they looked at each other, they vaguely saw a hint of uneasiness in each other's eyes. It shouldn't be. Child Chen is a sky pride on the Dragon Phoenix list. He might just be testing. The first prince laughed dryly. His back was already covered in cold sweat. They never thought that Qinqing would be defeated. Chapter 1234. Qinqing was a little surprised to see his sword move being countered so easily. His eyes gradually revealed a serious expression. Qinqing was indeed arrogant and a little arrogant. But that didn't mean he was a fool. The strength that Duguchilma displayed was enough for Qinqing to treat him seriously. Duguchilma's footsteps flashed, and there were threads of lightning twining around his feet. With every step he took, there seemed to be a thunderous explosion in the void. It was the first level of the divine movement's secret skill, chasing lightning. In an instant, Duguchilma's figure flashed and appeared in front of Qinqing, stabbing at his chest with his sword. So fast. Qinqing was shocked and hurriedly blocked with his sword. Clang! The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing formed a transparent sound wave that swept out in all directions. The entire valley seemed to reverberate with that ear-piercing sound. Boom! The two figures retreated at the same time, and Qinqing kept retreating. He felt a terrifying rebounding force hit him, causing his arms to go numb. His Qingxiao sword trembled as if it had suffered a huge injury. Duguchilma is really strange. Qinqing's face was as cold as ice. Duguchilma's strength was far beyond his expectations. Not to mention, he also had a strange divine weapon. Its quality was terrifyingly high. Even his companion divine weapon was somewhat unable to withstand its power. Duguchilma maintained a strong stance and summoned the battle god demon body. Endless demonic runes appeared on the surface of his body, making him look like a demon king from hell. The battle god demon body had a total of 9 transformations, and Duguchilma had now cultivated to the 3rd transformation. Although it was slightly inferior to Yiguchen's ancient god technique, it was still an excellent body refining technique. At this moment, Duguchilma, who had unleashed his 3rd transformation battle god demon body, was even more wild and unrestrained like a demon king. His moves were grand and grand. His left hand formed hand seals and unleashed devouring energy explosion, evil origin lightning and other moves. With the God Devourer sword in his right hand, he used the 13 demon swords. The soul-devouring clan's martial arts in his left hand and the demon sword emperor's taboo heaven absolute art in his right. At this moment, Duguchilma was unbelievably powerful as he crushed Qinqing. Everyone at the scene was dumbfounded, intimidated by Duguchilma's powerful and domineering moves. Demon King, this is a true peerless Demon King. Outside the valley, some of the spectating sky prides exclaimed. This reminds me of the Devil Emperor ascending to the 9th heaven phenomenon that caused a small stir in the South Horizon region some time ago. Do you think it was caused by this Dugu begging the Devil Emperor? There were also some prodigies who suddenly recalled the Demon Emperor phenomenon from a while ago. When they looked at Dugu, who was like a demon god, they naturally connected the two together. That shouldn't be possible. Rumor has it that the phenomenon of the Devil Emperor descending to the 9 heavens was caused by the prodigy of the extermination devil sect. Although Duguchyo Mo is strong, he is still a prodigy of a dynasty. Someone objected. As they argued, they continued to watch the battle. Inside the valley, violent battle waves burst forth. The surrounding rocks tumbled down and were directly crushed into powder by the shockwaves. Boom! After another exchange, Chen Qingxiao was forced to retreat. The blood in his chest churned, and an abnormal shade of red appeared on his face. Seeing that Chen Qingxiao seemed to be unable to deal with Duguchyo Mo, the faces of the first prince and the second princess became paler. Duguchyo Mo, you do have some skills, but I am a prodigy of the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion, an existence on the Dragon Phoenix list. Chen Qingxiao was unconvinced. He raised his sword, and in the void, sword seals appeared. Tiangang Sword Seal. The sword seals emitted a sharp metallic aura, suppressing Duguchyo Mo. Duguchyo Mo burst forth with Azura True Qi, and immediately performed a devouring technique, Black Dragon Devour. His true qi transformed into a huge black dragon head, and directly swallowed all the sword seals. Then, Duguchyo Mo flashed and threw out an evil elemental puppet. Waves of black waves appeared in the void, and directly blasted toward Chen Qingxiao. Chen Qingxiao's green clothes were torn apart, but unexpectedly, there was a layer of green-gold soft armor under his green clothes. The evil elemental puppet's waves bombarded the soft armor, causing it to burst with green light. All kinds of runes appeared, and the attack's power was reduced. Even so, Chen Qingxiao's chest felt stuffy, as if his chest had been hit by a hammer. Heh! So you're wearing a turtle shell? Duguchyo Mo sneered. He could also see that the green and gold soft armor was quite extraordinary. It was also at the level of a Heavenly Tribulation divine weapon. Although weapon-type Heavenly Tribulation divine weapons were rare, they weren't too rare. However, armor-type Heavenly Tribulation divine weapons were very rare. From this, it could be seen that the prodigies of the overlords were a level higher than the prodigies of the dynasties in all aspects. However, if that was the case, Duguchyo Mo still had nothing to fear. Damn it! Chen Qingxiao was extremely sullen at this moment. As a prodigy on the Dragon Phoenix roll, his greatest characteristic was his companion divine weapon, the Green Firmament Sword. However, the Green Firmament Sword was now completely suppressed by Duguchyo Mo's God Devourer Sword. Chen Qingxiao only knew that Duguchyo Mo's sword was extraordinary, but he didn't know that it was a primordial demon sword. Otherwise, even if he was given 100 guts, he wouldn't choose to fight. Duguchyo Mo, I was just warming up before. This is the real battle. Chen Qingxiao's face turned pale as he looked at the playful eyes outside the valley. He once again used the core sword technique of the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion. A blazing brilliance appeared from the sword. Startling rainbow sword technique, Dusk. This was another emperor-level sword technique that Chen Qingxiao used. Instantly, sword light filled the void, and the glow lingered as if dusk had descended. 13 demonic swords, Star Incineration. Duguchyo Mo countered by using the 13 demonic swords. After all, this sword technique was the ultimate technique of the demonic sword emperor, and its power was unpredictable. Duguchyo Mo had yet to fully unleash the power of this sword technique. Startling rainbow sword technique, Eternal Night. Chen Qingxiao's sword momentum changed again, and it was as if a curtain of night had descended. Together with the Green Firmament Sword, it pressed down on Duguchyo Mo. Duguchyo Mo then used the Moon Slashing, Eclipse, and other sword techniques of the 13 demonic swords to break through one after another. In the end, Chen Qingxiao's genuine qi gathered, and a bright rainbow light bloomed from the sword and soared into the sky. It was like a rainbow above the 9th heaven, dazzling and almost blinding people. Final sword technique, Startling Rainbow. As the sword fell, sword qi overflowed and rushed into the sky. It was as if a rainbow had descended from the sky. Before the might of the sword had even landed, a deep crack had already appeared in the ground below. Dugu Chiumo's white hair was messed up by the air pressure, but he didn't look afraid. He once again used the sixth sword technique of the 13 demonic swords. Tun Shi. Azura True Chi was injected into the God Devourer sword. Suddenly, a monstrous black sword chi burst out. Although Dugu Chiumo couldn't unleash 1% of the God Devourer sword's power, this little bit of power was enough to suppress the surroundings. Boom! Thousands of sword chi scattered, covering the surroundings. The first prince, the second princess, Yan Wushuang, Princess Fengxi, and the others hurriedly retreated to the edge of the valley for fear of being affected. The surrounding rocks were pierced through the air, and the mountains collapsed. With one collision, the entire valley was in a mess. As smoke and dust rose, everyone's gaze was cast over. What was the result of such an intense collision? Chapter 1235. The entire valley was filled with smoke. The clash between two geniuses was very intense and very eye-catching. They all wanted to know who was better. In the thick smoke, there was the sound of swords clashing and the sound of blood coughing. As the smoke dissipated, the fight between the two was seen by everyone. Dugu Chiumo's black robe was slightly torn, but he was still in good condition. His fighting god demonic body made his body extremely strong, so it was difficult for him to be seriously injured. On the other hand, Chen Qingxiao was bleeding from the corner of his mouth. However, with the protection of the azure gold soft armor, he was not seriously injured. However, anyone with discerning eyes could see that Chen Qingxiao did not have the upper hand in this clash. In fact, he was at a disadvantage. This is a genius ranked 14th on the Dragon Phoenix list. Even he cannot suppress Dugu Chiumo. He is even at a disadvantage. As expected of the white-haired sword demon. After the sacred imperial world, Dugu Chiumo's name will shock everyone. The spectating heaven's favorites all gasped. Their eyes were filled with shock and awe. Dugu Chiumo's current strength was no weaker than the average genius on the Dragon Phoenix list. How could this be? The first prince and the second princess were both trembling. They had originally thought that Chen Qingxiao's arrival would suppress everything. A mere Dugu Chiumo would be easily suppressed. However, the result was completely different from what they had imagined. The two of them, who had been confident in Chen Qingxiao, were now worried. However, they could not escape because they felt Dugu Chiumo's murderous intent locked onto them. If they ran away, Dugu Chiumo would immediately kill them. Moreover, the first prince and the second princess had a feeling that if Dugu Chiumo wanted to kill them, even Chen Qingxiao would not be able to stop him. In the valley, Chen Qingxiao's eyes were as cold as frost. There was extreme seriousness in his eyes. He knew that he had encountered a tough opponent this time. Now, Chen Qingxiao would believe that Dugu Chiumo was a hidden prodigy of the demonic extermination sect. However, at this moment, he was in a difficult position. Chen Qingxiao didn't want to engage in a bloody battle right here and reveal his trump card. It would be detrimental to his search for more opportunities in the Holy Imperial Universe. However, if he admitted defeat, it would greatly affect his reputation. Even the reputation of the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion would be greatly damaged. Thinking of this, Chen Qingxiao looked at Dugu Chiumo and said, "Dugu Chiumo, we've already fought to this point. Do you still want to continue? If you continue to fight, it will be very disadvantageous for you." Chen Qingxiao was actually trying to find a way out for himself so that his reputation would not be tarnished. However, the corners of Dugu Chiumo's mouth curled into a cold smile when he heard this. "You're still thinking for the enemy during a great battle. Chen Qingxiao, you're really considerate." Anyone could hear the thick sarcasm in his words. Chen Qingxiao's expression was unnatural as he said, "This is your last chance. Since you don't want to take it, then forget it. Cut the crap, let's fight." Dugu Chiumo didn't say anything else. It was impossible for Chen Qingxiao to end the battle just like that. Not to mention that he had once said that he would take Yiguchen as his follower. If that was the case, then Duguchilma might as well suppress him first. Boom! Blood-colored genuine chi burst out from Duguchilma's body. His aura was like a rainbow as he swung his sword. At the same time, a purple aura emerged from his body and wrapped around the sword, making the sword move even more powerful. It was the Khanate Purple Chi. The Khanate Purple Chi's greatest use was in cultivation. It was known as a cultivation accelerator. However, that didn't mean that the Khanate Purple Chi could only be used for cultivation. It could also be used to fight enemies. The power of any move would be amplified after the Khanate Purple Chi was added to it. Duguchilma swung his sword as if he wanted to cut open the sky. The Khanate Purple Chi wrapped around the Khanate Purple Chi and wrapped around the God Devourer sword. The power of this move was unparalleled. Even Qin Qingxiao was shocked and quickly used his move to fight back. Cyclone Sword Cut. Qin Qingxiao controlled the green firmament sword and spun in the void. A green storm of sword chi spread out and connected heaven and earth. If anyone was caught in the storm, they would definitely be torn apart by the endless sword chi. When the two sword moves collided, sword chi burst out and split the sky and earth. Everything in the valley seemed to have been cut and shattered by the sword chi. Cracks spread on the ground. Duguchilma's body shook. Sword chi brushed past his face and body, causing wounds. However, his expression was indifferent and he didn't feel any pain. Although his body had been baptized by the heart of the Azura Sage King and transformed into a body of flesh and blood, he still felt pain. However, he could still block out the pain. His sword broke through the green sword chi storm. Qin Qingxiao spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. Even with the green firmament sword and the protection of the azure gold soft armor, he was still severely injured and his face was pale. Duguchilma still had the upper hand in this attack. No, I don't believe it. Qin Qingxiao's eyes were bloodshot. He didn't have any scruples. He knew that if he didn't use his full strength, he might really lose. You're lucky enough to witness my trump card. Qin Qingxiao spat out a mouthful of blood essence and splashed it on the green firmament sword. In an instant, a misty green light appeared on the blade of the sword, and mysterious runes appeared one after another. Those were the natural sword moves recorded on the green firmament sword. When combined with the green firmament sword itself, it had endless power. Green firmament sword art, bright sunlight. Qin Qingxiao shouted and unleashed the true power of the green firmament sword. The green firmament sword art was the natural sword move recorded on the green firmament sword. Swoosh! With a swing of the sword, the green sword chi seemed to cut the sky and earth apart. Duguchilma looked calm. He held the God Devourer sword with both hands and injected Azura vital chi into it. He used another move. 13 demonic swords, 7th sword art, defying earth. Duguchilma held the sword with both hands and turned the sword upside down, stabbing it into the ground. In an instant, the ground crumbled and endless sword chi burst out from the ground. That move shook the earth and the mountains. The ground of the entire valley seemed to have crumbled as if there was an earthquake. Countless sword chi burst out from the ground. The 7th move of the 13 demonic swords used the sword chi to trigger the earth vital chi and unleash a huge destructive force. If the demonic sword emperor used this move, everything within a 10,000-mile radius would collapse and form a hole. Boom! A huge explosion and the sound of the ground collapsing spread out in all directions. Therefore, everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. Such a powerful sword move made their scalps go numb and their minds tremble. Even Qin Qingxiao's natal sword art seemed a little dull in the face of such a move. Rumble. In the violent collision, Qin Qingxiao's azure soft armor shattered into countless metal shards and scattered in all directions. He was also hit by the sword chi from the ground and smashed into the stone wall of the valley. Spiderweb-like cracks appeared all around him. He was covered in blood and his bloodshot eyes stared at Duguchilma as if he couldn't believe his failure. No. I haven't lost yet. Qin Qingxiao roared and tried to use his natal sword art again. However, Dugu Chilma's soul-devouring demonic eyes were filled with a bloody light. Chapter 1236. In fact, Dugu Chilma had already made up his mind when they first started fighting. He wanted to suppress Qin Qingxiao and enslave him. The reason for this was that Qin Qingxiao had shamelessly said that he wanted to take Yi Guqin as his follower at the martial tablets St. Lotus. Since that was the case, Dugu Chilma would make Qin Qingxiao his follower. At this moment, Dugu Chilma activated the power of the soul-devouring demon eye. A terrifying soul power swept out and attacked Qin Qingxiao's mind. Qin Qingxiao was the pride of the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion and the Dragon Phoenix Roll. Naturally, there was a protective spiritual item in his mind to prevent him from being attacked by soul attacks. Therefore, it was not that easy for Dugu Chilma to enslave Qin Qingxiao with the soul-devouring demon seed. It would take some effort. Ah! Qin Qingxiao held his head with one hand and screamed in pain. He felt his mind tremble violently as if a soul spear had pierced into it. Inside his sea of consciousness, a green pearl was emitting a green light that enveloped his sea of consciousness and protected him. This green pearl was the spiritual item that protected his mind, the green spirit pearl. If not for the green spirit pearl, Dugu Chilma's soul-devouring demon eye would have injured Qin Qingxiao's mind in one hit. No. I'm the pride of the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion and the Dragon Phoenix Roll. I can't lose. Qin Qingxiao's expression was ferocious. He forcefully gathered the true qi in his body and used his ultimate move again. Green Heaven Sword Art, Boundless Sky. Endless green sword qi burst out from the green firmament sword. At this point, Qin Qingxiao had used all his trump cards. He no longer held back and wanted to kill Dugu Chilma. However, it was still useless. Dugu Chilma held the soul-devouring demon sword in his hand. Pitch-black sword energy surged and collided with Qin Qingxiao's sword. Qin Qingxiao was already severely injured. After being hit again, he spat out blood. Green Heaven Sword Art's ultimate move, Nine Heavens Fury. Qin Qingxiao's blood-red eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The essence blood in his mouth splashed onto the green firmament sword. Streaks of green runes appeared, accompanied by a sword qi that wanted to pierce through the heavens, bursting forth. This was the final form of the green cloud sword art, Nine Heavens Fury. The sword slashed out horizontally, and it was as if the nine heavens were enraged. The wind and clouds surged, and the sword qi dispersed in all directions. Countless rocks and boulders were blasted into pieces, and the entire valley was in a mess. However, when Dugu Chilma saw this, he shook his head slightly and said, "It's just a meaningless struggle." He reached out his hand, and his devouring power surged out. A black hole appeared in the air above him. As it spun, it seemed capable of devouring all living things. Suddenly, Qin Qingxiao's expression froze. At this moment, if one were to look at his pupils, they would see that there were streaks of blood spreading out from his pupils. Did it work? Dugu Chilma exhaled, and his face was slightly pale. Using the soul-devouring demon seed required a large amount of soul power, and it also required some origin in the sea of consciousness. Although it was not much, it was still a burden. Therefore, Dugu Chilma could not use this move without limit. Otherwise, if he could use this move to enslave hundreds or thousands of geniuses, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in the Holy Imperial Realm. I cannot use this move too often. Only those who are useful can be enslaved by me, Dugu Chilma said. Now, Dugu Chilma could feel that there was a will in his mind to submit to him, and it was from Qin Qingxiao. He could even make the soul-devouring demon seed explode and kill Qin Qingxiao with a single thought. What's going on? At this moment, the people inside and outside the valley looked at the two people who had stopped fighting in confusion. They did not know what had happened. However, what happened next made everyone tongue-tied, as if they had seen a ghost. Qin Qingxiao got up and knelt down in front of Dugu Chilma, saying, "Your humble servant Qin Qingxiao greets you, master." As soon as he said that, there was a dead silence. Everyone's eyes widened, and they took a deep breath. They felt cold sweat on their backs. Could it be that Dugu Qiuma used some method to enslave and control Qin Qingshao? One of the geniuses was in disbelief. Even in the demonic extermination sect, which was famous for its demonic ways, not many people could use such a terrifying and evil method. However, Dugu Qiuma had used it. Moreover, he had not enslaved any random person. He had enslaved the geniuses on the Dragon Phoenix list of the Imperial Heaven Sword Pavilion. Dugu Qiuma is going to break the sky. Some of the geniuses were scared out of their wits. They could foresee that Dugu Qiuma's move would cause a huge commotion in the Holy Imperial Realm. Chapter 1237. At this moment, Dugu Qiuma sneered as he looked at Qin Qingshao, who was kneeling in front of him. That was the result of going against him. Dugu Qiuma could have killed Qin Qingshao directly. But Qin Qingshao was a genius on the Dragon Phoenix list. He was still useful and could do many things in the sacred imperial realm. Besides, after planting the demonic seed, Dugu Qiuma could control Qin Qingshao's life and death with a single thought. Therefore, he was not afraid that Qin Qingshao would break free from his control. A frog in the well can't talk about the sea, and a summer insect can't talk about the ice. So what if you're a genius on the Dragon Phoenix list? You think too highly of yourself. You're just digging your own grave. Dugu Qiuma looked indifferent. His personality was indeed arrogant and unruly, but he was never arrogant and conceited. Qin Qingshao, on the other hand, was defeated by his arrogance and condescension. Now, the dust had settled. The entire valley was eerily silent. Those geniuses who were watching felt a chill in their hearts. They looked at Yi Guqin as if he was a demon. Compared to death, the feeling of being controlled and becoming a walking corpse was obviously more terrifying. As for the first prince and the second princess of the great Qian dynasty, they had already lost their souls. Their faces were as pale as paint and their legs were trembling. Dugu Qiuma calmly walked in front of the two. With a plop, the first prince and the second princess knelt down without any hesitation. They cried and kowtowed, "Young Master Dugu, please forgive us. We were blind to have offended you. Besides, there is no grudge between us." In fact, until now, both of them still had doubts. They did not offend Dugu Qiuma. Why did Dugu Qiuma have to go against them? Dugu Qiuma did not explain. He was too lazy to explain. He said calmly, "Since you have placed all your hopes on Qin Qingshao, let him end your hopes with his own hands." As soon as he finished speaking, Dugu Qiuma had an idea. Qin Qingshao immediately took action. He held the Qingshao sword and looked at the first prince and the second princess with murderous intent. Dugu Qiuma's order was an iron law. "No, no, young Master Dugu, please forgive us. We can be your slaves and follow you." The first prince was terrified and hurriedly shook his head. "Follow me? You think too highly of yourselves," Dugu Qiuma said indifferently. At the very least, Qin Qingshao still had some value. As for them, even Dugu Qiuma felt that they were an eyesore. "No, young Master Qin, wake up." Seeing that Qiuma was not soft-hearted, the first prince and the second princess couldn't help but shouted. However, Qin Qingshao acted as if he didn't hear anything. The Qingshao sword in his hand vibrated, and a green sword light shot toward the two of them. Qiuma of Qiuma of him. To Qiuma Kikiyamo Qiuma Kaio Qiuma. Bang! Qiuma Qiu. Of Qiu Chen. Qiu Yu O Qiu Qiumu. If they were given another chance, they would definitely not carry out such a plan. Then, Dugu Qiuma's mind moved again. Qin Qingshao's face was cold as he charged at the Phoenix Nye dynasty's group. Princess Phoenix Dawn's expression changed, but it was impossible for her to surrender. She gritted her teeth and resisted. Puff! 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 The cyan sword light swept out, and the Phoenix Nye dynasty's people fell one by one. In the end, only Princess Feng Shi was left holding on bitterly. No matter what, she was still a 7th-grade prodigy with the immortal phoenix blood. Even if she was facing Qin Qingxiao, she could still fight back. However, she only had the strength to resist. In Qin Qingxiao's hands, Princess Phoenix Dawn was having a hard time holding on. In the end, Qin Qingxiao's sword stabbed towards Princess Feng Shi's forehead. Princess Feng Shi closed her eyes in despair. Stop! An indifferent voice sounded. The sword in Qin Qingxiao's hands suddenly stopped. Princess Phoenix Dawn opened her eyes in astonishment and looked at Dugu Qiuma. To be honest, she also felt that Dugu's begging was very similar to the figure in her memory. However, the two of them only looked similar in appearance. Their style of doing things was completely different. Furthermore, Princess Phoenix Dawn also knew that Yi Guqin was already dead. Now, Princess Phoenix Dawn was a little surprised that Dugu's begging would spare her life. Remember, don't do it again. Dugu's tone was indifferent. Princess Phoenix Dawn had some interactions with Yi Guqin. Although they weren't very close, they were at least acquaintances. Furthermore, Yi Guqin knew everything that happened here, so he wouldn't let Dugu's begging kill Princess Phoenix Dawn. Thank you. Princess Phoenix Dawn's voice trembled. Being able to live was naturally better than being dead. She glanced at Dugu's begging before looking at Yan Wushuang and the others with a complicated expression. Then, she left in a flash. In the end, only Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the other Swallow Cloud Dynasty's prodigies were left in the valley. Yan Wushuang and Ji Ling didn't dare to lower their guard as they looked at the white-haired, devilishly handsome figure. Although Dugu's begging and the figure in their hearts overlapped, they were certain that the two of them weren't the same person. Dugu's begging slowly walked over and his gaze landed on Yan Wushuang. Ji Ling's heart tightened as she stood in front of Yan Wushuang and cupped her hands. Thank you for your help. The reason why she stood in front of him was because she was afraid that Dugu's begging was willing to help them because of Yan Wushuang's beauty. Dugu's begging was stunned when he saw the girl standing in front of him. Then, he smiled faintly. Ji Ling's personality was still the same as before. She was still protecting Yan Wushuang. Are you guys alright? Dugu's begging said as he flicked his wrist and a few Saint Tier healing pills landed in the hands of Yan Wushuang, Ji Ling, and the others. As the Mara dynasty's prince consort, he naturally didn't lack healing pills. Thank you. Yan Wushuang and Ji Ling received the pills, but they weren't used to it. Didn't they say that the white-haired sword demon of the Mara dynasty was cold and emotionless? Why was he treating them so well? Moreover, Ji Ling could also sense that Dugu's gaze towards her and Yan Wushuang wasn't mixed with any other thoughts. The sky prides outside the valley were also speechless. They were incomparably surprised. The decisive and ruthless Dugu's begging seemed to have changed into a completely different person. His attitude towards Yan Wushuang and the others was a little too good. The inner circle is too dangerous for you guys right now. However, I can bring you guys to the outer circle to obtain some opportunities. Dugu's begging expression was gentle. Such an expression rarely appeared on his face. Why? Yan Wushuang hesitated but still bit her lip and asked. On her exquisite face, a pair of bright eyes as bright as the morning stars looked straight at Dugu. Dugu Qiuma paused, and then he said, just treat it as if someone has always been silently watching you from behind. Someone has been constantly watching me. Yan Wushuang's heart suddenly trembled. She didn't know why, but a drop of tear fell from the corner of her eye. Someone was still silently watching her from behind. Could it be him? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.